What character would realistically learn magic in Marvel? This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126 Otto. Oh, and the fact that you used my body to date that lady, well, it actually seems strange now. Damn, what am I talking about? Anyway, Otto, I hope you understand that I didn't kill you not because I felt sorry for you or wanted to humiliate you. It's because this is my principle. I have never killed anyone. Not before, not now, and not in the future. And you did a really good job. The mechanical spider is a great idea. But, seriously, why don't you use these abilities for the right purpose? You obviously have the ability to be a hero, and the most important part is that you have a heart to do good. His sincere words made Penny Parker applaud silently in her chair, and the reactions of the other people were also somewhat strange. Shadow and Spider-Head looked at the other self who said these words and felt extremely embarrassed, especially Shadow, who killed a lot of people. Gwen didn't react much. She kept smiling calmly, curling her hair with her right hand, looking very comfortable. Her reaction made the wizard glance at her, and it seemed that she noticed his gaze, and the girl gave him a bright smile in return. This made Shenyan look away expressionlessly. Otto's facial lines became hard, his jaw muscles relaxed and tightened, but he didn't say anything. Peter still didn't give up the idea of persuading him. Seriously, Otto, you are a qualified Spider-Man. I mean, you did a great job. He pointed to the four people eating onlookers on the side, smiled awkwardly and said, "This sentence sounds a bit strange. After all, I always thought that I was the only Spider-Man parallel universe. It's really crazy, isn't it?" The wizard didn't say anything on the side. He was still flipping through the memory of Otto that he had just obtained. To be fair, he was a pitiful and hateful person. His father was a factory worker with alcoholism and violent tendencies. He often beat the young Otto and his wife for no reason, and he was bullied by many classmates and senior students because of his appearance. He secretly vowed from then on that he would never become the same as his father. He studied hard, and Otto was undoubtedly a genius. He became an outstanding nuclear physicist. The contrast between his inner and outer appearance is so strong. He was not good-looking, even ugly, but his intelligence allowed him to complete countless experiments independently without any assistance. He single-handedly went from a poor student to the most senior scholar in the field of nuclear physics. As it should be, according to the rules, accidents happened when he was in high spirits. This seemed to have become a kind of rule, a kind of agreed and quick rule. He worked hard and invented mechanical tentacles. These tentacles with self-intelligence can lift objects weighing up to 8 tons each. They are easy to operate, completely radiation-resistant, strong, and extremely accurate, and can even perform surgical operations. This allowed him to complete one amazing experiment after another, write countless new theories, and make him famous all over the world. However, in one experiment, a pipeline ruptured, causing radiation to leak out, causing a huge explosion. Although Otto survived by chance, his 4 mechanical tentacles had merged with his body. These 4 intelligent tentacles completely tapped into the evil part of his heart, and even controlled him in turn. Under the control of the tentacles and the influence of the part of his heart that hated following the rules, he became a terrifying supercriminal. It is worth mentioning that he rarely killed innocent people, and even the money he robbed was just for his own research. During another experiment, he found that his body had cancer, and it was an extremely strange cancer. He found that he was aging rapidly, and his body had undergone strange changes, making him as ugly as a monster. Unable to accept this outcome, he began to look for other solutions. On the verge of madness, he decided to exchange bodies with his nemesis, Spider-Man. His genius allowed him to develop a machine that could exchange bodies within a week, and then he used this machine to exchange his consciousness with Peter Parker. Trapped in Otto's body, Peter, who was dying and about to die as a villain, decided to pass his memory of growing up to Otto after he had no hope of regaining his body. Let him understand why he became Spider-Man. After reading Peter's memory, Otto seemed to have gotten rid of the influence of the tentacles digging out the evil thoughts in his heart. He actually began to regret what he had done, but Peter chose to forgive him, and Otto swore to him that he would do his best to be a good Spider-Man. He wanted to be a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker, and a better person than Otto Gunther Octavius. To be fair, he did not break his oath. He made all the evil people in New York City leave this place. Some were injured and some died. And even those robbers and thieves had nowhere to stay because of the mechanical spiders he developed that shuttled through the streets and alleys. Otto's memory has a very complicated view of this part. On the one hand, he feels that he is a thief, but on the other hand, he really enjoys his life as Spider-Man. Although he is reluctant to admit it, Shenyan knows that it is the life he wants to be but has not become. After a long silence, Otto finally moved. His soul took off his glasses. There was no reluctance in his eyes, only calmness. He seemed to have let go of everything and said with relief, "Go ahead, Parker. I don't want to say it again, we don't have to." Peter Parker still didn't give up. He still wanted to try to persuade Otto, and this time, Otto was not angry. He even laughed. "You are always like this, Parker. You seem to have infinite tolerance for us villains. When I exchanged bodies with you, I realized that my previous victories over you were all false. With your strength and speed, you can even easily break my tentacles and kill me with one blow. But you didn't do that. You would rather have your ribs broken and even put yourself in danger. I don't understand people like you, but when I became you, I realized how difficult it is to do so. You are a better person than me, Parker. Go ahead." He stood there quietly. Peter didn't speak, and after a long time, he spoke carefully. "Doctor, although I don't want to kill you, even if you want to die, you shouldn't say it to me. Look, I'm not a wizard." After saying this, he pointed to Shenyan, who was standing aside and smiling without saying a word. Otto's expression was rapidly becoming strange. The Doctor in the comics is a character who is both good and evil, and is also the most vicious villain of Spider-Man. I even think there is no other villain. After all, this guy beat Peter so hard that he didn't want to be Spider-Man anymore when he first appeared. At that time, I still watched the physical version. I was still shocked when I saw them swapping bodies, although the subsequent series of plots were quite, well, you all know. Especially after the end of Spider-Apocalypse, he cloned his body and became Spider-Man in San Francisco for a while, but in the end he became Dr. Octopus again because of some things. The screenwriters of American comics are really outrageous. He was completely whitewashed at that time. His career and love were all successful, but the screenwriters didn't let him. I didn't follow their settings completely, and changed some. Friends who are interested in comics recommend to read the Spider-Apocalypse series and the Ultimate Spider-Man series. They are all very good. Otto is completely qualified as Spider-Man, and his own personality is also quite interesting. Chapter 127 Death of Captain America. Are you really not going to continue to be Captain America? I know it may be abrupt to ask this, but, you see, you represent the American spirit after all, Steve, Tony said to Rogers, who was sitting opposite him. They were having a party on the first floor of Stark Tower. Everyone was enjoying the party, even Bucky. He was drinking alone, but Steve knew he was in a good mood, which could be seen from his shaking feet. Except for Steve, he and Tony were having a conversation. "No, Tony, I really don't plan to be Captain America anymore." "Okay, I know I can't persuade you, but I still want to know, why?" Steve Rogers looked at Tony Stark with his blue eyes, or more precisely, at the night view outside the French window behind him. People were celebrating with fireworks. The scene was reflected in his pupils. Steve closed his eyes and smiled. "Captain America lives in an era that never existed, Tony. At that time, the government would not hire crazy people in strange costumes to deal with their own people. At that time, everyone was very disciplined. The world was the same. Even the villains valued honor. I use our flag as my uniform. I wear it on my body. It is a proof of my love for this country. But you know what, Tony? I found that this country does not love me. To be precise, it is no longer the America I know. I don't know how to express my feelings. For a while, I thought, even if she has changed, I will continue to be Captain America. even if some people are using her name to do unspeakable things under that flag. Tony pursed his lips tightly. Steve didn't stop talking. He continued, "Let me tell you something else, Tony. Something I've never told anyone before. We all know that it was Furia who sent Coulson to find me, right?" Steve's words made Tony's heart start to falter, as if his heart wasn't in his chest, but was suspended in the air 10,000 meters above. His face turned pale, and Tony realized that what Steve was going to say next might shake things up. "It was a mission. I was knocked unconscious. Hydra wanted to turn me over, and they gave me a piece of evidence. I still remember what the military briefing said. The briefing said, we found Captain America, but after discussion, we decided not to rescue him. I personally don't understand this, but our staff and the president believe that if World War II is to end quickly, then airstrikes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki are inevitable. As a soldier with good conduct, moral impeccable, and powerful strength, will Captain America hinder this? We don't know. No one knows. But the staff believes that he who regards morality as more important than military missions may hinder the country. The government has made this assumption and regards our heroes as a burden. Is this correct? I don't understand, but I will do it, even if I will be condemned by my conscience every day for the rest of my life. I am a soldier. They don't know whether I will do it, but they didn't give me a chance to prove it. They just threw me into the icy sea to die." Steve's expression did not change. He did not even open his eyes. There was still a faint smile on his face, as if he was telling the story of another person. "I still remember the time when I could easily be proud of this country. When this country could still celebrate victory with loyal soldiers. When this country was still the motherland I remembered. But times are changing, aren't they, Tony? I am an old-fashioned person. I found that the struggle has become darker and the war has become more despicable. When I walked to the history area of the library and flipped through our history books, I saw the unjust wars they launched. I understood one thing. Those who think they are noble, who think they have sacred reasons, who think their ideals can bear the power, the heavy responsibility, and make us ashamed. What they do is even more despicable and shameful, which can make the most cruel murderers look pale in comparison. But at that time, I still believed in one thing. I know that it is natural for this government to make mistakes. We are just a complex system run by mortals. I am still proud of her and I still love her. Until Jack Richards' death. That was the first time I made up my mind to thoroughly examine what was wrong with our country that could allow them to kill such a soldier who had served the country for many years. Then, I found that this was no longer the America I knew. I have been fighting as a symbol all my life, a symbol of the right side. I represent all the right sides of this country, the side I love. But now, they are trying to turn this symbol into a convenient tool, serving the political purposes of one faction or another. I can see their endless chatter in the news and media. At that time, I understood. Captain America should be dead. Or rather, he had died a long time ago. He had died long before the American spirit he represented became something dirty and filthy. The person talking to you now is just an ordinary person. Just Steve Rogers. Tony grabbed the armrests of his chair and sank into the large armchair. The sound of fireworks outside was still loud, and the laughter of Sam and Rhodes in the hall seemed so harmonious, but Steve Rogers, who was sitting opposite him, closed his eyes and cried. Tony opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but when the words really came out of his throat, he found that his voice was terribly hoarse. "I understand, Steve. I understand you." "No, Tony, you can't really understand me. No one in the world can completely empathize with another person. I just want to say." He opened his eyes, with undisguised fighting spirit and fire in his eyes. "If she has gone the wrong way, then I will pull her back. I will drive out all those who do ugly things in her name, and I will make them repent forever for the crimes they have committed. At least when our children look through history books in the future, they will no longer be ashamed to find that their fathers were a group of bastards with thicker skins than city walls and blood on their hands." Tony looked at him and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this? They will erase all your achievements and make you a wanted criminal and a traitor. Aren't they already doing that?" Steve smiled indifferently. He took out a red booklet from his arms and threw it to Tony. "Take a look at it when you have time, Tony." Now, I have to go to the party." He got up and left. Tony sat alone in the room. He touched his bald head and looked at the booklet thoughtfully. Chapter 128. A little bit of miscellaneous. Shenyan and the 5 different Spider-Men walked out of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Morlun floated behind them, his eyes crooked and his mouth slanted, looking like an idiot. "Well, anyway, Mr. He, thank you for your help. I really don't know how to ask." Peter, who had a metal leg behind him, shook his hand and said, "You're welcome. It's just a small matter." Shenyan shook his hand and said, "Besides, I also need your help. I don't know what a powerful being like you needs our help with." Gwen said. Shenyan glanced at her and confirmed again that he had never seen this girl before. He said, "I'm sure I haven't seen you, ma'am, but why have you been silently repeating my name in your heart?" Gwen, whose heart was peeked into, was not angry. She smiled and said, "Don't you think it's very rude to pry into other people's hearts at will? You said yourself that you wouldn't do that." Shenyan looked at her deeply. "It's just because your eyes are too obvious, ma'am. I'm not old enough to be called a lady, am I? Anyway." The mage abruptly changed the subject. "I hope you can wait here for me for a while. There is something I need to confirm, and then I will come back to talk about this matter that I need your help with." "No problem, sir." Parker nodded and put on his mask. "Speaking of which, are there any bad guys in your place? Anyway, we are idle now, you know." The mage smiled. "No, Mr. Parker, although I really want to find something for you to do. They are all dead." After he finished speaking, he opened a portal and left, leaving the 5 spiders standing there, looking at each other. "I guess he killed them all," Penny suddenly said. "Agree." The shadow nodded. "Really? He doesn't look like such a cold and heartless person." The Spiderhead was a little uncertain. Their discussion lasted for a long time, until Shenyan came back. Passing through the portal, he came to Hell. He had already known that Frank was thrown here by Strange through the surveillance array set up in Hell. The reason why he was not brought back immediately was because the old man was really living like a fish in water here. Without Mephisto, those 2 or 3 kittens could not do anything to him. Shenyan was also happy to watch him slaughter Hell. Anyway, those who died were all damn things. Why not? And it can also let him vent. When he found Frank, he had already mastered the skeleton form and could have self-awareness in this form. Shenyan watched him holding 2 large caliber pistols that could fire flaming projectiles and slaughtering demons crazily. Wherever he walked, only a pile of charred corpses was left. He killed from the north to the south, and from the east to the west. It was just like a barbecue party in Hell, but the dead were all demons. "Stop, Frank." The wizard floated in the sky and had to remind Frank, who had been killing and ignoring others. He stopped and looked up. The flame flashed and he returned to human form. "It's me." Shenyan floated down. His red eyes still made Frank a little wary. Noticing his little movements, the wizard smiled helplessly. "Could there be someone else who could pretend to be me?" "I think so. The last person who did that was the Master of Illusion." Frank nodded, and the flaming double guns in his hands turned into a puff of smoke and dust, floating above, and gradually disappeared in the sky of Hell. "Yes, and he died miserably." "Are you ready to go back?" "Go back?" Shenyan raised his eyebrows. "Why, are you addicted to killing?" "Not only that, I am very comfortable here, at least more comfortable than when I was up there. I am afraid that if I go back, I will lose my mind again." Frank shook his head and nodded. "That won't work either. You must go back to the human world. The negative energy of Hell has a corrosive effect on people, even if you like it here very much. I don't want to see you really go crazy one day." "What about this thing?" Frank pointed to his head. Shenyan knew what he was referring to. The wizard snapped his fingers, and a portal passed through the 2 of them and returned to the human world. They were in Antarctica. The wizard's hand lit up with an orange light, and he patted Frank's shoulder, and then he said, "Okay, that's it, that's it." Frank moved his shoulders in disbelief. He didn't feel anything special, just felt very quiet. "Wait, quiet." The old man who was blind in one eye suddenly realized something. He found that the screams of those who had died in vain that he had heard before had disappeared. Their voices before death had been lingering in his ears, shouting for him to avenge them. And Frank was very happy to do this, but they were driving him crazy. He had no choice but to kill some demons in hell to vent his anger. "Did you take it out?" "No, I just erased their voices that were temporarily blocked for you, Frank. The soul is still in your body. I don't know what he is, but I promise you that I will take him out." Frank was silent for a while after hearing this. He said, "No, maybe this is also good." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Frank's answer was very firm, which made Shenyan smile. Frank Custer was one of the few people who could be at the same level as him in willpower in his heart. This man never wavered and never gave in, since he made such a decision and planned to stay with that thing for the rest of his life. Shenyan would not force it. After all, it was his own choice. He just said seriously, "I have to tell you one thing. When you hear their voices again, you must contact Strange immediately and ask him to block those voices. Otherwise, you will gradually fall into a state where you can't control yourself, and you can only relieve it by killing people. I don't think you can accept that situation, remember?" Frank nodded silently. The wizard sent him back and took out the dark book. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129, Leaving Again. Scythoan, if you don't want to be scolded again, come out and speak. Shenyan's words were not polite. He held up the sacred book that was treasured by countless dark wizards in the past, and even refused to open it. Scythoan's voice came from inside. "What's the matter? I have to confiscate your book." "Oh, don't. You can't deprive an old man of his only hobby. No matter what you say, you didn't abide by our agreement last time, didn't you?" "I promised to let your book stay on Earth, on the condition that you delete all those dangerous evil spells. But you didn't do it. You violated the contract first." "Okay, but, I think there is still room for negotiation," Scythoan said. "There are no conditions to discuss." The wizard answered him impatiently. He wanted to quickly solve the problem here, and then go to see how those Spider-Men traveled through the world. Maybe it could provide him with some inspiration. "Who knew?" Scythoan interrupted him. "No, you will definitely be interested in this news. It's about the Ancient One." Scythoan's voice became cheerful. "Why don't you say anything?" "I know what you want to say. I'm not an idiot, Scythoan. I'm not the kind of person who would help someone count money after being sold. I know what's going on and I'll find her and settle accounts with her sooner or later. I don't need you to watch the fun here." Shenyan's answer was a little beyond Scythoan's expectations. In his dimension, the expression on the face of this Hades could only be described as strange. On one hand, he was laughing very happily, the kind of happiness that couldn't wait to watch the show, but on the other hand, he felt very uncomfortable because others already knew what he wanted to say, so he could only sigh. Okay, but I still hope you don't deprive me of my only little pleasure. If you don't let me see the fun on Earth, then throw the book into the universe. Anyway, you won't feel bad if some aliens die, right? Find a way yourself. I'm too lazy to spend my magic power on this kind of thing." Shenyan's somewhat ruthless answer made Zai-Song whimper again. He was like a child, making a fuss through the dark book without any identity, until he couldn't bear it anymore. Shenyan threw the book into space with magic. Zai-Song let him go. "Please, that damn Hades." The mage's expression became calm. He exhaled, and the hot air turned into a vast white mist in the Antarctic. Being on this snowy ground made him feel calmer than ever before. Liar. He thought so, then opened a portal and returned to the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies. The 5 spiders were still there, thanks to the secret spell of the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies. They were not seen by the people coming and going. When Shenyan walked out of the door, he saw a strange but harmonious scene. They were squatting on the street lamp in front of the sanctuary, hanging upside down and chatting, except for Penny Parker. She was sitting at the door of the sanctuary with a large robot, listening to songs together. Spiderhead saw him first. He rolled beautifully from the street lamp, landed lightly, and waved to Shenyan. "Oh, hi, "Sir, you're back." The wizard was not very good at dealing with this kind of familiar type. He shook hands with him, and then said to Parker with metal legs behind him, "Wait for me for a while. You can take this opportunity to get familiar with the artificial intelligence left by Otto." Parker knew what he was referring to. It was Otto's masterpiece, an artificial intelligence named by him after his lover, named Anna Maria. Thinking of this, he began to have a headache. Shenyan did not kill Otto, but put him in a bottle and kicked the ball back to himself. He didn't know how to tell Anna Maria about this, how to say it. "Your lover is not actually me, but Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius, who is in my body. I'm back now, so I have to break up with you. But don't worry, your lover's soul is in a bottle." He was madly complaining about this in his heart, but his face remained calm. "Okay, Mr. He." The wizard smiled at him and then walked into the Holy of Holies. He went straight upstairs and came to a small room where Strange was sleeping. He pushed the door open and walked in, gently waking Strange up with magic. "Is it resolved?" After Strange woke up, he didn't care about the pain all over his body, but asked this question first. "Of course." Shenyan nodded as if it was a matter of course, and replied, "Who do you think I am?" Strange forced a smile with difficulty, which affected his injury. The smile soon turned into a grimace and a gasp. He gritted his teeth and cast a pain-relieving spell on himself, and then sighed comfortably. "Ah, of course, Ancient One's most proud disciple, a genius wizard, you can certainly solve the ghost. Why don't you give me a pain relief?" "This is too painful." "It's good to be painful, it will make you remember." Shenyan answered him ruthlessly, and then said, "Also, don't mention her in front of me." Strange frowned. "What's wrong?" "Something very complicated happened, Strange. Anyway, the next time I meet her, one of us will die." The wizard's answer made Strange frown deeper and deeper. He knew what his teacher could do, and he also knew that Shenyan's words would not change, but he could do nothing about it. He just sighed again. "Okay, no matter who dies, I will go to collect your bodies." "Come on. You can't even travel through the world and you still mention this. Hurry up and heal your wounds. Also, I have something to ask you." "What is it?" "Do you know Peter Parker, or Spider-Man?" "No." "Who is he? Did he offend you?" Strange's answer didn't seem fake, so it made Shenyan even more confused. He simply told the whole story. So Strange also fell into confusion. He muttered, "There is no reason. If it was those 3 spells, we should have been able to detect it to some extent." "That's the problem, Strange." Shenyan continued his words expressionlessly, "unless she cast it herself." On Strange's hoarse face, his expression became ugly. He didn't say much, just nodded silently. Shenyan continued, "I'm leaving. I have to deal with some things with those spiders. I feel that I should be able to find what I want in this matter." "You're leaving again?" "Yes, Strange. Also, say goodbye to Steve and the others for me. You can't always leave this kind of thing to me." Strange rolled his eyes. "This is your duty, Sorcerer Supreme." "My duty is not to send notices to other people on behalf of people who are traveling to tell them that they are out to play. It doesn't matter. It's part of your duty. Anyway, I'm leaving. Take care of your injuries." Today's update is over. These 2 chapters of 10,000 words are transitional chapters. The next book is expected to be a series of Spider-Verse that I have modified. It won't be very long. Basically, I will just go there to make a cameo appearance and kill all the vampires in the airs. Please vote. Actually, I haven't decided whether to go back to Harry or Geralt first after the end of the next volume. What do you think? Chapter 130 Spider-Man 2099. "So, this is your technique for traveling through worlds." The wizard walked out of a vortex-shaped portal that glowed with blue light. All he saw was a mess. The collapsed buildings and the wreckage of buildings together formed a wasteland scene. If it was a horror movie, there would probably be no need for any setup. They could just start filming. The sky was dim and he could not see any signs of life. There was only dead silence. He could not even see any human corpses. Behind him, 5 people walked out one after another. Peter Parker, who exchanged bodies with Otto, seemed to be not quite used to his new suit. He pulled his uniform a little uncomfortable and said, "Yes, this is technology from 2099. Well, how should I put it? In my world in 2099, there was also a Spider-Man, and this technology came from his company. Very mature world shuttle technology, isn't it? My masterpiece, a strange voice said. The wizard looked up and saw a Spider-Man with a blue and red body, some silver as embellishment. His mask did not have eyepieces like other people, but was composed of a whole piece of hideous red lines. He was also much taller than Parker. So, this is the Spider-Man of the world you just went to? Well, to be honest, I didn't expect that there was a wizard version among us. I'm not Spider-Man, the wizard said to him, then waved behind him, and Morlun flew over. He threw Morlun into the corner of the ruins like throwing garbage. He rolled on the ground several times without knowing it, and the classic double-breasted dress coat was now covered with dust. Seeing this scene, the newly appeared Spider-Man was a little stunned. He said to Parker, "Wow, man, I didn't expect your new helper to be so powerful." Actually, he volunteered to help. "Anyway, it's nice to see you, Miguel." Spider-Man, known as Miguel, took off his mask. His face was completely different from Parker's, but also very handsome. Miguel asked in confusion, "Why do you seem to have not seen me for a long time?" "That's a long story. Anyway, let's talk about it when we have time." Parker smiled, and the expression on his face looked very complicated. "Okay." Miguel turned to Shenyan. He walked up to him and stretched out his hand. Miguel O'Hara, from Earth 616, is Spider-Man in 2099. Shenyan, an ordinary wizard. The wizard shook hands with him, and then said, "Earth 616? After the parallel world theory was discovered, we discovered a total of many different worlds, and there are also many people with the ability to travel through worlds running around. In order to facilitate management, they are numbered. Peter and I." "Oh, sorry, there are many Peters here." "Peter with metal legs behind him and I are from the same world. It's just that I'm from the future." "Interesting, hearing you say that. There are many parallel universes?" "Dude, let me tell you, parallel universes are completely endless. I have done experiments with my company's small drones. So far, a total of 30,000 robots have been sent out, and each has gone to a completely different world. According to my guess, if a person makes different choices at the same time, it will lead to the creation of a parallel universe. But this theory is not perfect yet." At this point, Miguel's mouth was opened all of a sudden. He immediately began to chatter. The wizard did not interrupt him, but listened patiently. Shadow and Penny Parker left, saying that they wanted to go to the ruins. The two of them have always had a good relationship. Spiderhead stayed where he was, and whispered to Gwen, "Miguel, doesn't Mr. He feel very dangerous?" Gwen glanced at him and said, "He has restrained his energy. Didn't you notice that his eyes are no longer glowing red?" "Really?" Spiderhead didn't believe it. He turned his head and took a look before confirming it. His eyepiece became smaller, and the voice from under the mask became more mischievous. "Hey, why are you observing him so carefully?" Gwen glanced at him and flew away directly on the spider silk. Spiderhead stayed where he was and shrugged his shoulders. Seeing that he had nothing to do, he simply found an open place and ran to lie down. Parker stayed where he was. He looked very distressed about the 6 metal legs behind him, but he didn't know how to remove them. Anyway, that's it for now. You really can't imagine what I found in the time travel. This is an unprecedented discovery for all mankind. Miguel's excitement was beyond words. The wizard nodded and asked, "What is your plan?" He pointed at Morlun. Miguel glanced at him, and the excitement on his face immediately turned into disgust. "It's very simple. Try to gather all the Spider-Men you can find, and then catch them all in one fell swoop. I mean, if they want to eat us, then come on. Maybe one Spider-Man can't match them, but what about 1,000, 10,000? It's a good idea, but it's not very realistic." The wizard shook his head. "According to the memories I saw in Morlun's mind, if your plan is just like this, then you can say that you have no chance of winning against them." The wizard said slowly, pointing at Morlun again. "Their family has very advanced cloning and consciousness uploading technology, and can even regenerate immediately after death. Not to mention that you will be eaten immediately if they catch you. Even if you kill a member of the Air family, they will resurrect immediately." Miguel's face turned ugly. He was not angry at the wizard's directness, but grateful. If the plan really went on like this, he, as the proposer, would definitely be responsible for the death of those Spider-Men. The reason why his face turned ugly was that he couldn't think of how to win like this. But don't worry, Mr. Miguel, you are all people who use technology. I am not opposed to technology, but there are some things that can only be done by magic. The wizard smiled and continued. Malon and his cannibal family may be able to ensure a certain degree of immortality by uploading their consciousness, but there is a prerequisite. They must die first. After I discovered this, I imprisoned his soul in his body and did an experiment. I killed and resurrected him over and over again. In the infinitely stretched time and endless death, his rationality completely collapsed. Miguel shuddered. Chapter 131. When I'm in a bad mood. The mage's emotionless and expressionless narration reminded him of some antisocial elements, but for Maran, no matter what kind of torture was used on him, Miguel would not shed a tear. But he still felt puzzled. How did Shenyan do this? Magic? Can magic do such a thing? As if noticing his doubts, Shenyan chuckled and said, "Yes, Mr. Miguel, magic can sometimes do things that are incomprehensible. If you don't intend to learn it, it's better not to try to understand it." Getting back to the topic, Shenyan went on, "After discovering their weaknesses, it will be very easy to deal with them. Even if I remove the shackles on his soul now and let him die completely, after he is resurrected he will only be an idiot drooling and unresponsive to the outside world, even if the body is brand new." Without waiting for Miguel to speak, Shenyan continued, "I will kill them completely for you, once and for all, but I'm not a good man who does nothing for anything. Miguel, I need you to do something for me as well." "That's fair. What is it?" "Don't worry." Shenyan smiled. He said, "Parker told me that you still have a team that is outside and hasn't come back yet. I'll tell them when they come back. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's just finding someone." After he finished speaking, a scarlet light flashed in his eyes. Miguel moved his eyes away without leaving a trace. His spider sense began to warn him frantically. The leaked energy made his instincts feel extremely threatened. It was as if the wizard only needed to raise his hands to kill him without a burial place. Miguel had no doubt that he could do it. Noticing his body trembling slightly, Shenyan smiled apologetically. He retracted the energy and his eyes turned black again. "Sorry, this is not my intention. I can't control these energies well. There are too many of them." In the gap between their conversations, another portal was opened. This seems to be the norm for world travelers. Often, all kinds of people will suddenly come to your world using portals of different colors, and then suddenly leave. They are not much different from the portals of the wizards, but the span is slightly larger. Only 2 people walked out of it. One had exposed circuits and flashed electricity from time to time, and the other looked like a teenager. He was not wearing a mask, and his immature face was full of anxiety. As soon as he came out of the portal, he shouted, "Hey, is there anyone? Someone come to help. The mechanical Spider-Man is dying." As soon as he finished speaking, the red and blue robot fell to the ground, looking extremely miserable. The light in its eyepiece was slowly extinguished, and even the electronic sound became a bit electric. "Nice to meet you, Peter Parker." Shenyan snapped his fingers. Then the damaged parts of its body quickly recovered, and even the scratches on the joints became as bright as new. The mechanical Spider-Man stood up with a somersault, looked at his hands, and said in confusion, Hey. The teenage version of Peter Parker on the side looked even more shocked than it, and he pointed at it, just like a replica of the scene of the classic emoticon package. "Damn it, why are there only 2 of you left? Where are the others?" Miguel was the first to meet him, and he asked anxiously. "Dead. We met another air family. He is stronger than Morlun. The Indian buddy and the Middle Eastern buddy were killed by him the first time they met, and the buddy who always spoke with a rap accent. They are all gone. Me and the mechanical Spider-Man almost died there." The teenage version of Peter Parker was a little dazed. He said in a depressed mood, "Damn, I like the Indian version of Peter Parker very much." Miguel muttered, but as an adult, he couldn't show a depressed look in front of this child, not to mention that there was no need to be depressed now. He pulled the teenage version of Peter Parker and introduced him to him. "Meet our helper, Mr. Shenyan, He is a wizard. Who knew? The teenage version of Peter widened his eyes when he saw Shenyan for the first time. He stammered, He, Mr. He, how come you were here? Shenyan narrowed his eyes. Have we met before? Don't you remember? I traveled through the world because you opened the door for me. Parker was a little surprised, but he didn't care so much. This Parker looked very familiar, or he felt that he and Shenyan were already familiar enough. No kid, wait, I'm sure we've never met. Huh? Really? Could it be that you are the parallel world version of the Mr. He I know? That seems to make sense. After all, there are so many worlds. Parker nodded thoughtfully. A strange smile slowly appeared on Shenyan's face, which flashed away, and then there was only calmness. No, kid, things may not be like this. Tell me, the me you saw, did he have a bracelet on his right hand? Are you talking about a sandalwood bracelet, the kind with a fresh fragrance? The wizard nodded slowly and forcefully. Yes, I have seen it. Even though he was still a teenager, he now felt that something was wrong. Shenyan breathed a sigh of relief, as if some burden on his shoulders had been lifted. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the black had been replaced by red. The huge and terrifying magic power burst out without any concealment, causing all the Spider-Men present to tremble unavoidably because of the spider sense. The red magic power formed an orange portal under his feet, and Morlun flew to his side as he wished. The wizard said to them calmly, Miguel, the deal can be cancelled. I have already got the answer I want. As for the Air family, I am in a bad mood now, so you can forget about them. I will make sure that none of them can survive. After he finished speaking, he took Morlun into the door. The teenage version of Parker was a little dumbfounded. He said to Miguel, what's going on? This is completely different from the Mr. He I know. When I last saw him, he was still a good guy. His childish voice spread far away in this empty land, even reaching Gwen's ears, but she has actually been paying attention to this side. The girl rolled up her hair by her ears and she laughed. The sunlight on the ruins shone on her golden hair, and the two reflected each other, making it more dazzling. She whispered, no, Peter, this is the one I know. Transition. The Air will be dealt with tomorrow. By the way, it leads to a big event in the Marvel world later, which involves how to kill the Ancient One. 5 more chapters tomorrow. Please vote. Chapter 132. Disgusting. Morlun comes from an ancient family. Ancient, but disgusting. As disgusting as someone. Shenyan fell from the sky with an expressionless face. It must be said that reading minds is really a very good ability. Whether you read minds with mental tentacles or magic, it is the same. Snooping into other people's memories is addictive. He doesn't need to talk to Morlun at all. He just needs to take a look at his brain, and then he can come to his house and kill all his family. Although this description is a bit cold-blooded, considering that his family is a group of super vampires who are inhumane and wantonly cannibalistic, I guess this is acceptable, unless you are a fan of Twilight. In front of him is a dark land, with patches of forests guarding an old pointed roof house. The decoration style of the house is very weird, and there is no beauty. The black crooked wooden boards and doors look like the product of a space-distorting magic attack, but it just exists, and even the warm yellow light shines through the windows. Laughter and conversation came from inside, and it seemed that they were having a dinner party. Unfortunately, what was coming was something more terrifying than death. The wizard was flying in the sky, watching everything below with cold eyes. He didn't even want to let his feet touch the filthy ground. In his perception, every inch of this land was filled with wailing souls. They were eaten alive when they were alive, and after death, even their bones would be turned into the foundation and soil of the building, and stepped on by the heirs. Make the best use of everything, right? Thinking of this adjective in Morlun's memory, he laughed sarcastically. In the dark night, 2 red spots flashed by, and he slowly approached the house. The wizard raised his hands high, and his magic power was transformed into the death magic required for the use of necromancy. After a small trick, a faint blue light flashed by, and as he lifted his hands, the souls of the dead slowly stood up from the soil. The faint blue spirits carried a cold breath, and their faces were expressionless, only the desire for revenge. The vampires in the house had no idea about this, and their perception was easily blocked by the wizard. Morlun, who had become demented, was dragged by something and thrown down. He broke through the wall of the house and knocked over their empty dining table. Sitting at the head of the dining table, an old man with white hair and beard looked up at him through the gap, with anger in his eyes. But his anger seemed extremely ridiculous to the wizard. He simply made a gesture, and the invisible mental tentacles instantly smashed his head into powder. He couldn't even see what killed him. Then, at the end of the table, a young woman in a fur coat began to scream. The wizard looked at her in annoyance, and then her beautiful head fell off, her flawless white skin began to rot, and her red lips gradually turned into two wrinkled yellow-brown objects, looking like a rotten apple core. The eyeballs fell out of the eye sockets and then turned into ashes. Another man who looked like her twin covered his mouth. He seemed to want to vomit, so the wizard turned his vomit into boiling magma. His face soon turned red, and he fell to the ground with a thud and began to twist on the ground. A terrifying lump bulged in his throat, and gurgling sounds kept coming from it. After more than 10 seconds, all his internal organs were destroyed by the magma, and he died in extreme pain. The remaining two people wanted to resist, but they couldn't even speak. Countless wronged souls had crawled out from under their feet, and the rotten hands had climbed up their legs. The wizard turned his head and left them here to die. And death is even just the beginning, for the resentful souls. Tearing their bodies apart is just the first step. Even worse is yet to come. The resentful souls have a special way of killing. Among the many undead, they are the most special. They will not kill any innocent people. On the contrary, they will keep chasing the person who killed them. Unlike most ghosts who are earthbound, the resentful souls are free. They can leave their burial place for a long time, and can even live in other objects. Their power is also extremely strong, but becoming a resentful soul has extremely demanding prerequisites. The deceased must have the potential to become a wizard, or be a psychic. The way of death must also be extremely painful. Of course, if you are a senior necromancer, then all of the above conditions can be ignored. Although Shenyan is not a necromancer, he is more proficient in necromancy than necromancers. It is not too difficult to do this, not to mention that the Spider-Men who died here were eaten alive. If this kind of death is not considered miserable, then what is? Back to the point. After the resentful souls tear the body of the murderer, they will extract his soul. They have the innate ability to create illusions, and can project their various feelings before death onto the soul body of the murderer, so that they can also feel their own pain. The resentful soul will not dissipate until the soul of the murderer is torn apart. But considering the soul strength of the heirs after eating so many Spider-Men, and the number of resentful souls present, this process may last for hundreds of millions of years. The wizard's departure was as silent as his arrival. This time he did not open the portal, but directly used the abilities of the cross-border wizards. After a burst of white light, he returned to the White Tower Council. Standing on the branches of the giant tree, the magic in the air made his body feel comfortable, but his heart was still full of anger. Ancient One deceived him, but he was also his teacher who taught him magic. He even saved his life more than once. He had never been so confused as he was now, until Ancient One really appeared in front of him. He pushed open the door of his room, and in that pure white, Ancient One stood opposite him, wearing a goose-yellow robe, with plain skin, standing there beautifully and elegantly. "Why did you do this?" Shenyan said calmly. His voice was so calm that he himself found it unbelievable. "Because the earth must have a guardian." "No, I mean, why do you still appear in front of me?" The wizard's hands lit up with two scarlet lights, and the pure white room fell into darkness in an instant. The red light illuminated his face, without expression, without a trace of hesitation. "In this case, I will have to kill you." Chapter 133 The Suicide. "I can't die yet, and you have the power to kill me. When the time is right, I will let you do it." Guyi didn't care about the energy that was gradually expanding in his hand. Not to mention that she was not afraid of the spell that could directly destroy a planet. The White Tower itself would not allow mages to use spells to fight internally here. "Don't say it as if you have a lot of difficulties. If you want me to protect the earth for you, you can just say it directly. Why choose to lie to me? You know my character, Guyi. You know that the thing I can't tolerate the most is deception." Guyi smiled first, and then said, "Of course I know what kind of person you are. a genius who doesn't want to be bound, and does what he wants without breaking the rules. But, do you think I haven't said it? What? I said it. Guyi raised his hand and showed him scenes. From the time he came here at the age of 20, until Guyi's death, all kinds of scenes in the past 10 years flashed by. Ancient One said, "These 10 years are only 10 years for you, but for me, I have experienced it countless times." I tried to tell you the truth directly, but the end of that line is destruction. As her voice fell, a cold picture emerged. It was a broken earth, floating in space, and countless human corpses looked like ants floating beside their home planet. So I thought, why not try another way? Not telling you the truth, but letting you take over the position of the Supreme Sorcerer. Another picture emerged, in which Shenyan was holding the dark book in his hand. He knelt on the ground, seemingly unable to accept the scene in front of him. In front of him was a mountain of human corpses. I've tried countless ways, even making a deal with Scython to let you take his place, become the god of Hades to protect the earth with Strange, but it still failed. Your mind was devoured by the dark magic, and you became one of the evil gods. In the endless reincarnation, I accidentally touched some truths of the world, and thus crossed the boundaries of the world. I came to the White Tower. I discovered some terrible truths. You must be deceived by me, and then discover the truth, and finally kill me and take my place, so that our universe will not be destroyed. A sneer appeared on the wizard's face. What a ridiculous story is this? You have plenty of time to make up a better one, but you choose to use such a ridiculous story to deceive me? Do you believe in fate? Ancient One suddenly said something out of the blue. Before Shenyan could answer, she asked herself and answered, I don't believe it, but the facts force me to believe it. After trying so many options, all I got was failure. Everyone died. You, me, Strange. Even all life in our universe will be annihilated in a future disaster. The only way to break the deadlock is this way. Do you know what you are talking about? Shenyan lowered his head and asked, are you trying to make me believe that every choice I made in the past 10 years of my life was not made by myself? Am I just a puppet being manipulated, or even all of us, being manipulated by an invisible big hand? Guyi's tone became hurried. The truth is cruel. Maybe it is, and maybe not. Who can tell? I have tried to resist, and I even killed all of you with my own hands, but in the end, I still want you all to survive. You have to travel to different worlds, find a swallow in those different and similar worlds, and bring her back. You want to kill me. You want to take my place. You must. She suddenly stopped. Guyi looked up at the ceiling of the room. Her eyes penetrated everything, staring at the unspeakable things in the void. Her expression suddenly became extremely terrified, and she murmured to herself, no, no, how could this happen? The future has changed. She looked at Shenyan again, and the mage suddenly felt a chill. Guyi ignored his wishes, and the space around them twisted. In an instant, they came to another place. They stood on the moon, and opposite was the earth. Or rather, it used to be the earth. Now, there is nothing there, empty, not even a speck of dust. Guyi looked at everything dully. She suddenly took 2 steps forward, turned her head and stretched out her hand, tightly grasped Shenyan's shoulder, and said, there is no time. Kill me. Now. Quick. What nonsense are you talking about? Shenyan was shocked to find that his arm went against his will, and after being raised, it was inserted into Guyi's heart, passing through his chest. The touch in his hand told him that he was holding a heart. Then, the strong external force made his fingers close involuntarily, crushing Guyi's heart. There was no splash of blood, and the pieces of the heart did not fall to the ground, but turned into smoke and disappeared. Guyi laughed, as if she had not personally manipulated Shenyan to kill herself. She even laughed with great satisfaction, as if relieved. Good luck, and sorry for dragging you in. Then, Guyi leaned on him, and her body, as light as a boneless body, disappeared. Starting from the lower body, it was erased bit by bit as if erased by an eraser. The magic power in her body was also extracted. Half of it was extracted by an existence, whose voice was low and echoing, and it was transmitted very far in the void, and even allowed Shenyan to hear it directly. The transaction begins. The creature in the void said so. As if some conditions were met, Shenyan looked up and saw that the darkness dotted with stars was torn apart by an invisible arm right above the universe. A closed eye peeked out from the crack. His heartbeat began to speed up, and he felt an uncontrollable pain in his head, but along with the pain came the endless ecstasy and satisfaction. The eyes slowly opened, and there was a starlight in them. Shenyan widened his eyes, and he saw countless gorgeous and brilliant scenes. He saw the birth of the world, the destruction of the world, the ultimate of all unspeakable things, and even death itself. These things that should not be seen turned into a storm that rushed through his mind. Starlight also lit up in Shenyan's eyes, and a crazy smile hung on his face. Chapter 134 Reshaping the Earth. At the moment when he was about to fall, he spoke again. Agreement. Reshape the earth. Begin. His voice was emotionless, even mechanical and lifeless, but it was like a loud bell and drum, easily waking the mage from the dangerous state. He was sweating all over and immediately cut out those images from his mind. Shenyan turned his head and saw that the earth was being reshaped. The picture was extremely shocking. The entire planet was created from nothing in a short moment, and a planet with magma on its surface appeared in the original place. It began to change within a minute, and the magma began to cool and solidify, forming hard rock. The gases formed by the volcanic eruption formed a secondary atmosphere, and the evaporation of water vapor accelerated the cooling of the surface. Then, heavy rain began to pour down and lasted for several minutes. The mage quietly watched the earth that was created out of thin air go through several generations in just 1 hour, from the first budding of life underwater to the extinction of dinosaurs to the emergence of the ancestors of mankind, the discovery of fire conquering darkness, crossing continents, and those mythical creatures walking on the earth one by one. When everything was over, the earth he was familiar with appeared in the universe again. No one knew that it had been destroyed for a short time, and then it was reshaped by unspeakable power, and even completed a process of 4.6 billion years in 1 hour. This great power made Shenyan shut up. He could also turn back time, but it was impossible to turn back such a long time with the earth as the object. What kind of thing could do this? He had an answer in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it. Transaction completed, he said, and then said, additional terms detected. Additional terms are being executed. Gui's voice sounded in his ears. Shenyan, when you hear this message, it means that I am dead. I'm sorry that I can't tell you the truth, and please don't delve into who I made a deal with. Of course, I believe you can guess some of it. Remember, don't mention it, and don't think about it. They can feel it. The future of our world is in your hands. I know this will disgust you and even make you hate me, because you are such a person, but I have no other way. Believe me, if I can find another way that is even a little better than this, I will do it. Unfortunately, I can't find it. You can say that I am taking advantage of your character weaknesses, or you can say that I am using my death to force you to take responsibility. You can even hate me, because I am now taking advantage of your character weaknesses to force you to bear this responsibility. Hate me as much as you want, you can even spit on my name, I just hope you can save them, and yourself. This message from the dead slowly ended, and he said to Shenyan again, and for the last time, additional terms completed. Transaction successful. Now, in the cold universe, directly above the moon, Shenyan was the only one left. He stared at the earth expressionlessly, and no one knew what he was thinking. White Tower. In a small room. Mr. looked at a portrait on his oak table. It was a portrait that he had asked a painter to draw when he and his companions were adventuring in the native world before he became a cross-border wizard. A beast-haired female warrior wearing chainmail, holding a big sword, heroic. A halfling archer. He always loved to tell jokes, and even the time they faced the mountain giants during their adventure did not make him shut up. A strange priest who believed in the sun, taciturn, but absolutely reliable. His flail was as heavy as his plate armor. He stood in the middle, dressed in a black robe, holding a white staff in his hand. When he was young, he had golden hair and a bright smile. He reached out and gently stroked the portrait. This was the last legacy of his native world. During an invasion many years ago, his world was destroyed by an organization in the void, and the entire world was packed away. only he escaped because of his cross-border relationship. It is not an exaggeration to say that there is a deep blood feud. Mr. Dash suddenly raised his head. It was not that I didn't want to call him by his real name, but because he was still talking nonsense after losing the fight with the administrator, and insulted the administrator on the chat board for more than 3 weeks. She announced that during her term, Mr. Dash would never be able to say his name, so we still have to call him Mr. Dash. He sighed suddenly, opened the White Tower's internal network, and clicked on the Today's News section. A message posted 2 seconds ago was rising rapidly and directly came to the front page. Mr. Dash looked at the post. He hesitated for a rare time, although he had actually sensed the death of Ancient One. 2 minutes later, he clicked in. The content of the post did not exceed his expectations. It briefly described some of the things that Ancient One did after coming to the White Tower, such as saving several cross-border mages. The poster was an anonymous user, who seemed to post frequently or write something else. It took about 3,000 words to describe how good she was, and then announced her death. The White Tower itself also confirmed the authenticity of the news. There were almost a dozen replies per second. Mr. Dash also replied seriously, "She is the craziest and most outstanding mage I know. She is undoubtedly a perfect mage. She is curious about any new knowledge, but she will never disrespect life because of her curiosity. I feel sorry for her departure." His reply was quickly brushed off. It is difficult to say how long the White Tower Council has existed, but the Ancient One has existed for almost the same time as the White Tower. Almost every cross-border mage who came here has received her help, or has been beaten by her. Many people have both. The total number of cross-border mages is not large. Even if there are countless worlds, their total number is only a few thousand. Losing one is a loss. Not to mention the Ancient One. Mr. Dash closed his eyes. For him, it is true that he lost a friend. But for the White Tower, losing the Ancient One is not that simple. Although the White Tower Council does not participate in the fights between those organizations in the void, it is two different things to have a gun in your hand and not use it. The Ancient One is definitely very strong. This is recognized. Her death is likely to bring some bad influence to the White Tower. Mr. narrowed his eyes. He didn't know which organization dared to do this, but if the war really started, countless universes would be affected. The transition chapter is finished. The next 2 chapters will be coming soon. Back to the Wizard. Chapter 135, Kaer Morhen, Spring 1250. Kaer Morhen. The castle has undergone shocking changes in the past decade or so. Some villagers at the foot of the mountain spread the news that Kaer Morhen was rebuilt. Although not many people believed it, the few who saw it with their own eyes were all fascinated by the castle. There was even a painter who came to beg Vesemir to paint a picture of Kaer Morhen. He was rejected as expected. The old witcher now just wanted to quietly train their new apprentice, and he didn't want to do anything else. He sat on the balcony on the 2nd floor of the castle, watching the young man in the yard stepping on the wooden stakes. He was wearing a thin shirt, and his black hair flew up and down as he jumped. His cat eyes confirmed his identity as a witcher. Although he was still an apprentice, Vesemir shouted loudly, "Hurry up, Anderson, do you want to clean the stables again tonight?" The young man was startled, and he immediately jumped up quickly, but accidentally fell off the wooden stake. Vesemir sighed. Anderson is good in every way except that he is easily disturbed. If he is like this during training, how can we let him go out to take commissions with peace of mind? You know, those monsters will not just give him more bruises, they will kill him. A hoarse voice came from behind him. You are too harsh on him, Vesemir. Oh, it seems that you want to comment on the way I train my apprentices? Vesemir turned around with a bad look in his eyes. Geralt, shirtless, stood behind him, and there were traces of his vomit last night on his beard. This made Vesemir even more unhappy. He opened his mouth to scold Geralt, but the witcher, who was well prepared, slipped downstairs and said to Vesemir, I'll go down and teach him. You should take a rest. Vesemir had to sit back in his chair. He muttered dissatisfiedly, who is old? I just killed that bat-winged demon not long ago. This guy who doesn't know how to respect the elderly. He looked at Anderson in the yard and remembered the day 16 years ago when Geralt brought him back. At that time, he was still in swaddling clothes and looked as big as a wine bottle. Because of the long journey, his health was not very good. Vesemir once thought that the child was going to die, but who knew that he survived. Very strong, the old man bought some goat milk for him at the foot of the mountain and watched him grow up little by little. Vesemir used to leave the castle every year, but since Anderson came, he has not left for 16 years. Anderson received complete Witcher training at the age of 12. The gadget left by Geralt's mysterious wizard friend lived up to its long name. Anderson lay down in it, and the worried Vesemir sat beside him all night. As a result, when he woke up the next morning, Anderson said that he just felt like he had slept. Looking at his cat-like eyes, Vesemir didn't know what to say. He remembered the suffering he had endured in his youth to survive the trial of the grass, and couldn't help but lament why the wizard didn't come a few decades earlier. Geralt walked out of the gate of Kaer Morhen, and the sun shone on him. The Witcher suddenly had the urge to go back to sleep, but because he had drunk the old man's stock last night and vomited all over the floor, if he went back to sleep now, Vesemir would probably throw him out of Kaer Morhen, so he decided to teach Anderson for a while. "Hey, Anderson, come here," he shouted loudly in front of the gate, and Anderson jumped down from the wooden stake. He grew very fast and was almost as tall as Geralt's shoulders. "Have you practiced swordsmanship recently?" Geralt asked. Anderson nodded. "Very good. Take a training sword and go to the dummy to show me the results of your training." Anderson did as he was told. He held the unopened training sword and stood in front of the armored training dummy. He took a deep breath and waited for Geralt's command, but he waited for a long time and didn't hear the Witcher speak. He turned his head and saw Geralt leaning on the stone bricks and looking at him expressionlessly. When he turned his head, he even spread his hands and said, "Why are you looking at me? Are you waiting for me to shout start?" "Listen, monsters and bandits who block the road will not tell you that they are going to attack. Just start when you are ready." After he finished speaking, Anderson began to swing the sword. Geralt had to admit that Anderson had a very good talent for swordsmanship. At least his footsteps were solid. This was very valuable. Many novices are keen on fancy sword turns and wrist techniques, but few people can notice at the beginning that footwork is the foundation of swordsmanship, and it is also the key to determining whether you are a killing machine or a half-baked swordsman. His footwork is very solid, and each step he takes and retracts is as precise as a machine, and even has a little bit of the charm of freedom in it. Geralt also noticed that he rarely uses those flashy swordsmanship, such as holding the sword above his head and spinning like an idiot. Anderson only chooses those swordsmanship that can cause the greatest damage with the least effort. He either attacks the eyes, the heart, or the arms and genitals. "Not bad." Geralt smiled rarely and nodded. Anderson put down the sword with a gasp. Even if he accepted the trial of grass, it was a bit difficult for him, a 16-year-old boy, to practice swordsmanship after training for a whole morning. But he said nothing. Geralt liked his character very much, just like his mother. Thinking of his mother, Geralt was in a trance for a while. The days of adventuring with the wizard seemed like yesterday. He was a good travel companion, who could pick up any topic and was always pleasant to chat with, except for the fact that he always liked to be a riddler, which was very annoying. Everything else was good. He could not forget what he experienced in Rivia in 1234. The strange manor and the brave girl were still vivid in his mind. How are they now? Geralt had no answer, but he knew the recent situation of Vilja, Anderson's mother. Her reputation even spread to Novigrad. In 10 years, she became a very famous female scholar in the world. Although Geralt did not understand the field of her research at all, and he was not interested in it, Vesemir's voice came from above, waking him up from his memories. "Come up to eat." "Anderson, by the way, let the lazy guy next to you put on his clothes, who walks around with his upper body naked all day. Does he think he is a handsome man?" Anderson looked at Geralt, who shrugged and ran into the castle. Geralt laughed in silence. The old man's temper never changed. "This year is actually very special. I wonder if anyone has played The Witcher 3 and remembers Shani. She is the lovely female doctor who had a fight with Geralt in the middle of the lake. She was born this year." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136. I am the Water Ghost Slayer. Geralt didn't dare tell Vesemir that he put too much salt in the soup, which made it so salty. He knew that if he told Vesemir, he wouldn't have to come back this winter. Even if he came back, Vesemir wouldn't open the door for him. After dinner, he put on the dragonhide armor given to him by the wizard, took his sword and his package and went out. His old horse is now living a very good life. It grazes on the hillside next to the castle all day long. It is simply overbearing and drives away all the carnivores. As a result, the number of goats and deer has increased a lot, which is a bargain for them. Geralt came to the stable and let out his new carrot, a docile black mare. His previous horse was unfortunately eaten by the evil spirits. He put on the saddle and put two swords. He set off again. Walking down the mountain road, the Witcher's heart was calm. He was thinking about whether he should go to Novigrad again to have fun for a while. He didn't experience the newly opened store last time. It is said that the service is very good. He squinted his eyes, his face expressionless, even serious. As for his inner thoughts, it was clear to say something dirty. But Geralt was a bachelor now, and no one could say anything about him except that he was dissolute. Moreover, he did not steal or rob, and all the money he earned was earned by his own labor. Apart from Vesemir nagging him about this every day, no one cared about anything else. With this thought, he came all the way to the town at the foot of the mountain. The owner of the inn had changed again, and it looked like the son of the previous one, about 30 years old. Geralt took out 15 crowns from his pocket and put them on the table, and asked for some dry food to take away. He planned to go south all the way to Sintra. He hadn't been anywhere for a long time, at least a dozen years. Monsters are like wheat, and they will grow sooner or later. Experienced demon hunters will accurately grasp the pattern of their appearance like farmers, and harvest their lives in exchange for money. Of course, they may also be harvested. He walked out of the inn slowly. The story of the white-haired knight that was popular more than a decade ago was no longer mentioned by many people. The degree to which people get tired of the old and love the new was not beyond his expectations. He could not tell whether he should be happy that he could finally stop being harassed or a little sad about it. But overall, he was still very satisfied with the days when he no longer had to run around with a hood on. The sun shone on his white hair. Because of the dragon leather armor, Geralt looked completely different from a demon hunter. The workmanship of the leather armor was so exquisite that he even needed to cover it with a cloak when entering the city. He continued to move forward along the path to see if he could kill some water ghosts. Yes, at this point, he had let it go. Killing water ghosts can make money and there is no danger. Why not? Let's be a water ghost slayer, he thought optimistically. Geralt walked into the tavern with a bloody smell. He threw out the 5 coins in his hand and signaled the owner to give him a glass of Temerian dark beer. Without even raising his eyes, the bald boss said, "Hey, white-haired guy, the price has gone up. It wasn't last time I came." "When was the last time you came?" Geralt looked into his eyes and said, 3 years ago. The bald man said impatiently, "That's right, it's been 3 years. Of course I have to raise the price." "Come on, 10 crowns a glass of dark beer. That's too expensive. If you don't want to buy it, get out. I'm the only tavern here. If you don't want to buy it, go drink the stinky water from those country bumpkins' houses." Geralt didn't get angry. He had long been accustomed to this level of insult. It didn't matter to him at all. He just took out another 5 crowns and put them on the table. The boss finally served him a glass of dark beer. He drank it all in one gulp and was about to find a seat, but the boss said, "You can't sit here." Geralt paused. "Why?" The firewood in the stove crackled, and the sound of people drinking and talking paused. Their eyes wandered between the boss and the Witcher. "Because you stink, white-haired guy. I don't like people like you, but at least you can't make my bench stink, right? You stink so much. And those 2 swords. Damn it, get out of here." His outburst caught everyone off guard. His face flushed, and he shouted angrily. Geralt felt something was wrong. He glanced at the tavern hall and decided it would be better to leave first. He stood outside for 20 minutes, and the boss sneaked out from the back door and saw him at a glance. The bald man changed his previous angry look, nodded and bowed as he ran towards the Witcher, and even wanted to kiss his left hand. The Witcher withdrew his left hand imperceptibly and said, "If you have anything to say, just say it directly. Your attitude in the hall makes me very uncomfortable." The boss smiled awkwardly. "I have no choice, master. I can't let the whole town know about my family scandal." "Family scandal?" "Yes, yes, but it is definitely related to the Witcher. Let me make it clear first. I won't help you kill your wife's lover, or your mistress. I kill monsters to make money, not kill people." "No, no, no." He shook his head hurriedly, fearing that the Witcher would run away. "I want to ask you to rescue my daughter from that damn wizard." "Wizard? Mage? Warlock? Hey, whatever you want to call him. That damn guy wears a black robe all day long. Since he came to the town 3 months ago, we can't even see wolves around here. He must have cast some evil magic." Of course, if it were just this, I would still be very grateful to him. After all, I am not those hunters, and I don't care about the price of wolf hearts and livers. But the problem is, he actually wants to teach my daughter to read. For Melitli's sake, he doesn't want to teach her to read. He just wants to sleep with her. My daughter is a famous beauty. You must help me bring her back. Geralt glanced at the ugly face of the bald man, and thought to himself that with your looks, how beautiful must your wife be to make your daughter a famous beauty? But he didn't say it out loud. Sometimes, saying such things will result in you not getting the money. He just asked calmly, "Where does he live?" The bald man was overjoyed. He pointed to a black wizard tower outside the town. "It's right there, master. You can see it if you go directly there. He will not refuse any visitor." "Really? Then he is a very hospitable wizard." "Yes, and a very handsome oriental, comparable to me when I was young." "Hey, why am I saying this? Go quickly." "Wait." Geralt suddenly stretched out his hand. He asked, "Oriental?" "Yeah, what's the matter?" Geralt blinked. He didn't speak, and changed the subject. "Let's talk about my reward. Today's update is over. Please vote." Chapter 137 Old Friends Reunion. Geralt didn't try to horse, he chose to walk to the wizard's tower. Halfway through, he began to regret it. The roads in this town were broken and muddy, especially after the rain. His boots were covered with mud, forcing him to stop and cut off the mud with a dagger. He walked all the way to the bottom of the wizard's tower. The tower was not high. It was all black, without any luxurious decorations. Even the top of the tower, which some people regarded as the facade, was just perfunctorily matched with red bricks. Geralt took off his gloves and knocked on the heavy oak door. No one responded behind the door, but the door opened by itself with a creak. A wizard in a black robe sat in the hall with his back to him, drinking alone. The firewood in the stove crackled, there was no candle, and the dim light made the wizard's back look like some kind of dark monster in the dark. When he said it was an oriental man, I didn't quite believe it was you. Geralt walked to sit opposite the wizard and said, "What did he say about me?" The wizard's voice was hoarse. The Witcher shrugged. "Are you sure you really want to hear it?" "Of course, why not?" "Well, he said you are a damn wizard and you want to sleep with his daughter." A scream came from the darkness, and Geralt turned his head and saw a girl running away from the intersection of the stairs. Geralt didn't see her face, but only saw her flaxen hair. He pointed in that direction and asked, "Are you really teaching her to read?" The wizard took another sip of wine, and he said nonchalantly, "Yes, why not? As long as people are willing to learn, I am willing to teach." Learning is a person's freedom, but many people will not cherish the opportunity in front of them. Geralt was in a good mood, and he was about to speak, but the wizard stuffed the wine in his hand into his hand. The Witcher also took a sip, and his eyes widened immediately. "Damn it, you can't give me this stuff. What's wrong?" The Witcher didn't say anything, and he drank the remaining 1/3 of the bottle in one breath. Then he wiped his mouth and said, "How can I drink ordinary wine in the future?" The wizard sneered mercilessly, "Come on, an alcoholic like you, once you get addicted, let alone cheap wine, you are willing to drink even horse urine. It's not that exaggerated, but I did drink alcohol." "How did it feel?" The Witcher smacked his lips and put down the bottle in his hand. "You don't want to know." "So, what have you been doing all this time?" The wizard laughed meaningfully. He didn't answer, but took out another bottle of wine from somewhere and handed it to the Witcher. He asked, "Have you seen my one-button lazy self-service grass trial machine? How is it?" "We only used it once." "Once?" "Yes." Geralt opened the cork. He stared at the liquid in the bottle that was shining like the starry sky, and was even reluctant to drink it. He swallowed his saliva and put the cork back with great willpower. He went on, "We have the machine, but the apprentice must be carefully selected. In 16 years we have only brought back one apprentice, but fortunately he is very outstanding." "Oh?" The wizard became interested. He looked up at the ceiling where the girl made some noise. He asked, "Would you mind talking to me?" The Witcher smiled. It was always a pleasure to meet friends after a long time, and Anderson was indeed worthy of his praise. "He is really great. When I was his age, I was still thinking about becoming a knight all day long." A 16-year-old boy, he gestured, his hand stopping in front of his shoulder. "This tall, very strong. I can remember it after reading the Monster Atlas once. His swordsmanship style is different from mine and Vesemir's. I don't know how he figured it out." The Witcher recalled the boy's sword-wielding style, and he smiled and said, "He will definitely be a good fighter in the future. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. Anyone who can achieve any of these 3 points can make achievements in swordsmanship, and he has all 3. Although he is a little green, time has never been a problem for us. It sounds like you are looking forward to it. Of course, what you do is of great significance to us. The reconstruction of a school is never accomplished overnight. I once thought that I would be the last Witcher, but now it seems that we will not be swept out of history so soon." Perhaps it was the effect of alcohol. In the dim light, Geralt's expression was a little complicated. There was some sadness in his smile, but he quickly wiped it off. He asked, "What about you? You have been here for 3 months and taught a girl to read. Is this what you want to do? Be a rural teacher in the future?" The wizard raised a finger. "First, I have been a teacher before, although not for a long time. Second, of course I can't just teach her to read. Andrea is a very smart child, and she also has a high affinity for magic." The Witcher laughed maliciously. "So you really want to, huh? There is a saying in my hometown, that dirty people see everything dirty." "Geralt," the wizard answered him lightly. "The girl found me by herself. She knew I was a wizard and brought all her belongings. 300 crowns. She begged me to teach her some basic spells." 300 crowns? The Witcher was shocked. This was not a small amount of money. 16 years have passed, and the value of crown, as the currency issued by Novigrad, has risen sharply. 300 crowns can even buy a complete set of full metal armor made by a dwarf craftsman. He couldn't help but ask, "Where does she get so much money?" "She is very talented in business, Geralt, or should I say, a genius. A girl born in the countryside, who can't even read, can make 300 crowns with 15 crowns. This is not genius. What is it?" "You see, this is the importance of opportunity. If I didn't come here, she might have been an innkeeper's daughter all her life, and married a rough farmer in a few years, doing his laundry and cooking, and maybe even getting beaten." "How did she do it?" The wizard spread his hands. "How should I know? Why don't you ask her?" The Witcher remembered that he had just spoken without restraint. He shook his head and said, "I'd better not make myself look bad. Words can hurt people, even if they are unintentional." You continue. "Anyway, if she wants to learn magic, then I will teach her." "Why not? Aren't you afraid that after she learns your spells, she will run to get close to the king like other wizards, and try her best to run to the court?" "She won't," the wizard answered firmly. "Are you so sure?" The wizard smiled mysteriously, and the Witcher couldn't help but roll his eyes. He knew that the wizard was playing the same trick as the Riddler again, and he had no way to deal with it. Chapter 138 Special Meditation. Their conversation lasted for a long time, covering everything from human geography to Geralt's views on witchers. There were more and more bottles of wine on the table. The Witcher was indeed a drunkard, and there was no excuse for that. He almost drank up the stock brought by the wizard. Fortunately, this kind of wine did not have a strong after-effect, otherwise Shenyan would have to prevent Geralt from vomiting suddenly. He did not want the vomit to dirty his floor. The Witcher shook his head. It was late at night and he felt sleepy. He asked, "Do you have a place to sleep here?" "Of course, but you may have to wait." The Witcher was a little confused. He saw the wizard take out a golden pocket watch from his arms and pressed it. The originally dim room suddenly lit up with a soft white light. The pendant on his chest began to vibrate. The Witcher felt that the unique feeling of being in a trance after drinking was quickly leaving him. Even the fatigue after a long journey disappeared. The wizard shouted upstairs, "Andrea, it's time to meditate." A girl's crisp voice came from upstairs. "Got it, teacher. I'll be right there." Geralt heard the sound of a chair being dragged and the sound of shoes hitting the floor. He turned his head and saw a flaxen-haired girl walking down the stairs. She was not a famous beauty as the bald man said. She could even be called a little ugly, but her eyes left a deep impression on the Witcher. Farmers and fools don't have that kind of eyes. They may be cunning and know how to cheat other people's money, but they are definitely not like this girl, who can give people a calm feeling with her eyes. But at first glance, the Witcher concluded that this girl's future achievements will definitely not be low. "This is my friend, a Witcher, Geralt of Rivia." Geralt stood up from the chair and bowed exaggeratedly. The wizard gave him a "what the hell are you doing" look, and the girl pinched the hem of her skirt nervously. She returned the greeting and whispered, "Hello, Mr. Geralt, my name is Andrea." "Yes, yes." She didn't finish the second half of the sentence, and her eyes kept glancing in the direction of the wizard. Shenyan laughed helplessly, and he finished the second half of the sentence about Andrea, "My student. This Mr. Geralt was invited by your father, and he wants this gentleman to take you back." Hearing that this matter was related to her father, Andrea's expression suddenly became calm. Her voice was still low, but this time it was very firm. "You can go back and tell him that I will not go back and let him sell me to that bastard. He only thinks about money." But he didn't think that the bastard is 40 years older than me and has beaten 3 wives to death. Geralt nodded, and he turned his head to cast an inquiring look at the wizard. The wizard shook his head. "A local businessman. He has a criminal record in this regard. He has never been caught, or he just has some special relationship with the sheriff." Geralt gritted his teeth. "Many times, the commissions I received regarding spirits were all transformed from women who were beaten to death by their husbands. These bastards beat their wives when they were drunk, and they beat their wives when they were angry. They don't care about the oath they made in front of the goddess Melitli when they got married. They are damn scum." The wizard commented, "Everyone has a violent factor, Geralt. That is the animal nature in us and it cannot be changed. But normal people can control their animal nature, but others can't. Just beasts." "Let's not talk about that. Come here, Andrea. How do you feel today?" The girl walked up to him, and the wizard hooked his finger, and a comfortable purple velvet armchair appeared in its place. The girl sat on it. She closed her eyes as before and began to communicate with magic. At the same time, she replied, "It feels good, teacher. But I don't quite understand what you mean by magic communicating with reality." "When you succeed in casting a spell for the first time, you will understand. Now, relax," the wizard instructed. The Witcher asked softly, "Should I leave?" "No, just stay quiet. Watching this process is also good for the magic in your body." "Magic?" "The sigils used by Witchers are cast from our bodies," Geralt said puzzledly. The wizard said the last sentence and then kept silent. "Everyone has magic in their bodies. It's just more or less." The soft white light in the room began to gather. Just watching their movement made Geralt feel a surge of heart. He covered his chest, not understanding why this made his heart beat faster. The white light gathered above the girl's head, and they began to fly and guard her head like a crown. Andrea, who had already started meditating, was unaware of this. Geralt's heart beat faster and faster, and he even began to feel palpitations. The white light became brighter and brighter until it reached a critical point and disappeared, while a complex pattern appeared on the girl's forehead out of thin air. The lines were beautiful and simple, and looked quite mysterious. Then, it began to glow. Just like the white light, it also began to light up, flickering with the girl's breathing. It lasted for more than half an hour. The mage pushed the girl with his mental tentacles to wake her up from meditation. At this moment, the pattern on her forehead disappeared. Andrea looked at the mage anxiously, and she whispered, "Teacher, I seem to have done something wrong. I didn't feel anything this time, I just felt that I slept." The mage smiled comfortingly. "No, you did well. There's nothing special about this. Now drink some milk and go to bed. You have a whole set of test questions to do tomorrow." The girl did as he said. She ran up the stairs and disappeared. Geralt watched her go away before asking, "What did you just do?" "To help her meditate. Isn't that obvious?" The wizard answered nonchalantly, as if he didn't hear what the Witcher was referring to. "No, no, no, the one you just made almost shook my pendant off." "Well, it's just a very ordinary energy-focusing spell. It can help her go a little further on the path of magic in the future. Nothing special." The wizard brushed it off lightly, snapped his fingers, and the scene in the hall began to change. The original stove and long table disappeared, replaced by a neat and clean room. The decoration in the room was not luxurious, and could even be said to be simple, but Geralt was not used to living in those exaggerated houses. On the contrary, he felt good like this. The wizard walked to the door. He opened the door, and the Witcher saw the scene outside the door was a dark sky full of stars. The wizard walked out, closed the door, and left a low good night to the Witcher. Geralt stood there, looking at the ordinary white wooden door, and thought for 10 minutes whether to open the door and take a look, but in the end, he decided to sleep peacefully. Chapter 139 Breakfast. Geralt had to admit that he slept very well last night. He hadn't had such a peaceful sleep for a long time since he left Kaer Morhen. There were no waves, and he didn't have to be vigilant about possible beasts, monsters or bandits. He could sleep until he woke up naturally. The Witcher was lying on his bed, and the sun shone on his face through the window. He rolled out of bed, picked up the pendant on the cabinet beside him, dressed neatly and opened the door. The starry sky that he saw last night seemed to be just an illusion. Outside the door was a spiral staircase. Geralt went down and saw Andrea sitting in the hall on the first floor eating breakfast. "Good morning." The girl nodded at him and continued to eat the soft bread in front of her. There was an open ancient book next to her plate. Geralt glanced at it and found that he couldn't understand a word of what was on it. Good morning. Hey, did you see?" Geralt looked at the soft bread in the basket on the table. He picked up one and started eating, asking while eating. Andrea said without even raising her head, "The teacher should be going out to relax now." "Relax?" "Yes, Mr. Geralt. Please sit down and eat. It's spacious here." "The teacher disappears for a while every morning and doesn't come back until noon." Geralt sat down awkwardly. He didn't expect the girl to be so perceptive that she actually discovered that he didn't really want to stay here and share a room with her. The Witcher decided not to talk anymore. He chewed the bread in his mouth and raised his eyebrows unexpectedly. The bread was unexpectedly delicious. He ate very quickly and stood up in no time, planning to leave the wizard tower to explain to the bald man that his commission could not be completed. He said to Andrea, "Then I'll leave first. Please tell he that if he wants to find me, I will stay in the inn in the town for a while." "Okay, sir." Andrea still didn't raise her head. She even forgot to chew the bread in her mouth. The book seemed to have some magic power, nailing her eyes firmly on it. The Witcher walked to the door. As soon as he put his hand on the door handle, he heard noisy voices and loud shouts from outside. "Listen, you evil wizard, you'd better hand over my daughter. I know you killed the Witcher, but you can't kill all of us." Geralt frowned and opened the door. He saw a group of villagers holding pitchforks and surrounding the open space in front of the wizard's tower. They were wearing coarse clothes and were very angry. Some even took buckets of dung and poured it on the wizard's tower. This was some kind of rural legend that filthy objects could make magic ineffective. Geralt thought to himself that there would be something interesting to watch later. The bald man who had met yesterday was standing in front of the crowd with a red face and thick neck, shouting and cursing loudly, but when he saw Geralt coming out of the door, he immediately shut up. Geralt closed the door with his backhand. He didn't know if the girl who was concentrating on reading inside heard it, but he didn't want her to hear these words. The bald man walked up to him and said incredulously, You're not dead?" The Witcher frowned even more. "Why do you think I will die?" The bald man's face froze, and he stammered, "Well, Master Witcher, you see, aren't all wizards? Aren't all of them taking human lives lightly?" Geralt was a little surprised to hear an idiom from him. He didn't expect that this bastard could spit out a piece of ivory from his dog's mouth. He said coldly, "The commission cannot be completed. You can keep your money." What? The bald man wanted to be angry, or rather, he felt that he should be angry, because this incident made him lose face in front of everyone, and he has always been a bully in the town. But when he saw Geralt's emotionless cat eyes, he swallowed back the dirty words he had prepared to scold the Witcher for not keeping his word, and withdrew his hands that were ready to push the Witcher, and the greasy smile hung on his face again. "Master, I can raise the price. How about 200 crowns? You just need to talk to the wizard." "There's nothing to talk about." Geralt rejected him again. He looked at the crowd around him and said to the bald man, "You'd better let them go back to where they came from. Otherwise don't blame me for not reminding you. The owner of this tower doesn't have as good a temper as me." The bald man's face turned red, but he still didn't release it. Instead, he pulled Geralt a few steps away from the crowd and whispered, "Master, I only have this one daughter." She was about to marry a successful local businessman, but that wizard intervened. "He must have cast a spell on my Andrea. She is my daughter. I know her. She will never disobey her father." The bald man became more and more angry and even began to grit his teeth. He didn't notice that the Witcher's face had become strange, nor did he notice that the crowd that had been shouting loudly gradually quieted down, until a shadow enveloped him. The bald man turned around and looked up. A black man was floating in the air, looking at him quietly. Suddenly, a red light flashed in his eyes. He landed slowly, neither hurried nor slow. The bald man began to retreat step by step, as if he was facing something terrible. He staggered and accidentally fell to the ground, with a mouth full of mud. At the same time, the filth that was splashed on the tower began to peel off little by little, and they flew rapidly towards the person who splashed them. The man who valued money more than anything else sat on the muddy road. He pretended to give up everything for love and closed his eyes. "Come on, wizard. It seems that taking my daughter away is not enough for you. Come on, kill me." The wizard turned his head to look at the Witcher, and Geralt moved a few steps away without leaving a trace to avoid blood splashing on himself. But the wizard did not do it. He shook his head slightly. "Although I had expected your greed and stupidity, I still didn't expect you to go this far for a little money. Do you know that I can kill you directly? I can even imprison your soul and torture you for tens of thousands of years. Do you think I have the ability to do this?" The mage's voice was calm and he was neither anxious nor annoyed. He even smiled. The man swallowed his saliva, and a great fear made him urinate. He trembled and wanted to escape, but another force stopped his trembling and forced him to speak. Chapter 140 God helps those who help themselves. "I believe it." The wizard nodded. "There is a saying that seeing is believing. Do you want to see it?" "No," he answered very cleanly. "Very good. Now get out and never come back. If you appear near my tower again, I will kill you and then extract your soul and attach it to the dung bucket." The man quickly got up and left with the villagers covered in dung. Geralt walked up to the wizard and said, "I thought you would just kill him." "No, normally, I wouldn't do that." The wizard's tone was calm and he didn't even look angry. This surprised Geralt. He looked at the mage and asked, "This is not like the you I know." Geralt, hey, my friend. What kind of image do you have of me? A demon who kills people at the slightest disagreement? People like him are just like this. There's nothing special about it, Geralt. You can't expect these people who have been dealing with mud and pig pens all their lives to be kind and polite. In fact, it's just that the war hasn't come yet. I bet that each of them has one or two rusty swords hidden in the basement or in the box under the bed, waiting to go out and rob when the war starts. You seem to know a lot about history. It's just a little personal superficial understanding. Farmers choose to do these things when they can't get enough food. This is a last resort. People must have something to eat to survive. Survival is the first instinct of human beings. They can't even get enough to eat. So how can you ask them to be polite and moral people? The mage paused, then continued, and I also think that there is no need to be angry with him, because it's not him who made him like this. Are you going to start talking about philosophy again? Geralt said with a mischievous smile. This is not philosophy, my friend. The wizard also laughed. But then there was silence. His expression made Geralt remember it for many years. This is a very heavy and serious topic. The Witcher didn't know why he wanted to continue listening. Noticing his expression, the wizard continued. Look, Geralt, people know what it feels like to be hungry soon after they are born. Most of the time, babies cry because they are hungry. This is human instinct. Only when you are full will you be qualified, have the time and leisure to think about other things. And these farmers, they have been working in the fields all their lives, and 80% of their income must be handed over to the king, and they even have to pay taxes during festivals. What if there is a war? TSK. That scene. I read a book recently. It is called The History of the Redanian War, and there's a sentence in the author that impressed me very much. He said, according to incomplete statistics, as long as the war starts and the kings can't find mercenaries, the farmers will lose their sons, and then due to lack of labor, they will not be able to pay rent. Therefore, some of them will choose to rob and be hanged, others will borrow usury, and the rest will starve to death. So in your opinion, how can this kind of thing be changed? Geralt knew that what he said was true, and every word the wizard said was heavy with blood. The Witcher has traveled all over the world in recent years. During wartime, not only are there dead bodies everywhere, but even monsters will appear in large numbers and hunt everywhere. It can't be changed, at least not now. You can't do it either? I can, Geralt. Of course I can wave my hand and let all the kings in the world die, and then rule them myself. Make sure everyone can live a good and happy life. But the question is, what if I leave? Besides, do you think I am the kind of person who would do that? The wizard didn't let the topic continue. He just waved his hand to indicate that the topic was over. The last sentence he said made Geralt ponder for a long time. I can't lead people forward as a god. They have to lead themselves. Geralt, God helps those who help themselves. They parted in front of the tower, and Geralt decided to stay with the wizard for a while, but he had to go and get his horse back. So the wizard returned to the tower alone. He pushed open the door. Although I am very happy that you are working so hard, Andrea, you must finish breakfast before you can start practicing. Hearing the voice of the wizard, the girl sitting at the long table looked up in panic. She quickly finished the half-eaten bread in her hand, and then ran to the wizard with the book. Pointing to a paragraph on it, she asked, Teacher, I don't quite understand this paragraph. The wizard carefully looked at the paragraph about the theory of spellcasting, and explained, Don't be too entangled in these theoretical knowledge, Andrea. Although our spellcasting has very strict gesture control and magic guidance, if you are talented enough, or you are experienced enough, you can completely ignore these things like me. Remember, rules are meant to be broken. He snapped his fingers, and Andrea saw the dinner plate on her table flew into the wizard's hand, and gradually changed into a short wand in a burst of white light. The wizard touched his chin. He pondered for a while, and decided not to add those decorations. He said, This is what some of my friends use. They like to use this kind of wand to cast spells, although it's not very advanced. But it's enough for you. Take it and try to pour the magic power in your body into it. You don't have to do anything. You just need to feel it. Andrea did as he said. She tried to relax, but still held the wand tightly in her hand. The rough touch gave her a different kind of peace of mind. As the magic power was poured in, she felt a strange wave coming through her body. Her hair stood up and then fell down, and the numbness spread from the soles of her feet to her scalp, but this feeling came and went quickly. The magic power formed a small water ball at the top of the wand, which floated up, clear and transparent. The wizard smiled with satisfaction. Look, you created the water ball without much effort, relying entirely on your own instinct. How does it feel to cast a spell? It's very strange, teacher, but I like this feeling very much. Very good, you have one foot in. Of course, it's just the first door. The wizard ruthlessly took the wand from her hand and pointed to the glass of milk on the table that she had not finished. Drink it, then go and practice. Tonight you have to meditate on your own without my help. Andrea looked at the wand with eager eyes, but she said nothing. She just drank the milk with a bitter face and went upstairs obediently. The wizard watched her figure disappear at the stairs. I saw a reader, asked the silver-haired elf. Hee. I can't spoil it. That involves a later plot. Chapter 141 Banquet. Shenyan had to admit one thing. He was a little confused. This emotion had not appeared in his heart for a long time. At least it had not appeared since he was sure that he had to take up the banner of protecting the earth with Strange. But the performance of the Ancient One before her death and her willingness to die still made the wizard feel a little mixed. He himself knew that returning to this world was mostly just to escape responsibility. But some things cannot be avoided. He sighed rarely, and at this moment, Geralt pushed open the door and walked in. He pointed outside the door and said, "I put the carrot in front of your tower and made a simple horse post. Hey, what's that look in your eyes?" The wizard looked away, and he tried not to laugh out loud. "Nothing, Geralt." The Witcher certainly knew what he was thinking, and he answered confidently, "I just called it carrot. What's wrong?" "Every horse of mine is called carrot. I really shouldn't have expected anything from your bad naming style, especially when you have a precedent." The two sat down at the long table. The mage asked, "So, what are your plans next?" "Continue to travel around the world and try your luck for bounties." "What else?" "That's how Witchers live." "But you? Are you going to stay here for more than 10 years until that girl becomes a master?" "More than 10 years? No, 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 you are underestimating her, and me too." The mage raised 3 fingers. "In 3 months at most, she will be able to become a master." Geralt gave him a suspicious look. "I heard that the training of mages takes more than 10 years, how come it only takes 6 months for you?" "First, she is talented enough. Second, I am also a genius," Shenyan said as a matter of course, "and I don't need to stay here all the time." "Geralt, have you forgotten? I'm a mage." "We have portals." "Then why didn't you use portals on our previous trip?" "Good question, Geralt. You see, most mages use portals only after they have been to that place themselves. Others rely on pre-prepared nodes. They will bury spell nodes all over the world for teleportation. Even I am no exception. The limitation of teleportation spells is here. You must have been to that place before." "Why do I feel like you are lecturing me?" "Really?" The mage blinked. He actually realized this. He simply coughed twice, made a gesture, and opened the portal to Kaer Morhen. He said, "Do you want to go back and take a look?" Geralt did not refuse. The two of them crossed the portal that emitted a bright blue light together. It was difficult for Geralt to describe this feeling. In fact, he didn't feel anything at all. Just taking a step forward, he crossed the long journey of more than 2 months and returned to Kaer Morhen again. This castle, which was restored by the hands of the wizard, was beautiful and magnificent. Under the sunlight, the milky white top of the tower even reflected a dazzling silver light. Geralt smiled unconsciously. If there was a place in the world that these wandering demon hunters could call home, it must be Kaer Morhen. They walked into the courtyard, and a black-haired boy in a shirt was waving a training sword at a dummy. Even Shenyan, who was not an expert in swordsmanship, could see that he must be an old hand. The boy's ears moved, and he turned around vigilantly, but relaxed after seeing Geralt. The demon hunter pointed his thumb at the wizard standing behind him and introduced, "This is the wizard I mentioned to you, Anderson." "Are you referring to the wizard you often say is a damn riddler when you were drunk?" Geralt laughed awkwardly twice. "Yes, Anderson." He turned his back to the wizard and made an expression to Anderson that said, "I'll deal with you later," and the boy smiled. He walked up and shook hands with Shenyan very politely. "Hello, sir, my name is Anderson, and I'm an apprentice here." Shenyan, a wizard, part-time riddle-teller. His words made Geralt beside him laugh awkwardly twice. Vesemir appeared in front of the door of the hall. He said disdainfully, "Your silly laughter can even be heard by me sitting in the hall. Geralt, go to the kitchen and bring up the soup dude. Anderson, you go and help him too." He quickly drove Geralt away and asked Anderson to help him. Then he walked up enthusiastically and gave the wizard a hug. This caught Shenyan off guard, but the old man was obviously sincere. "Thank you, Mr. He. I don't know how to express my gratitude, but you will always be the most distinguished guest of the Wolf School." Shenyan didn't know how to react. In his past turbulent 10 years as a wizard, he had never been thanked so sincerely. He was either killing cultists, aliens, or other miscellaneous things. His only free time was basically occupied by learning spells. He tried his best to maintain the expression on his face. "I'm honored." They walked into the hall, and Shenyan saw some wooden boxes filled with wine in the hall. and many alchemical bombs in the corner. There were a few more swords shining coldly on the wall. Noticing his gaze, Vesemir introduced, "I found those in the armory of the castle. Although they look sharp, they are actually just for show. There is no other use for them except as decoration." He took out a bottle of wine from a box nearby, handed it to the mage, and said a little embarrassedly, "I'm sorry, I haven't traveled for many years. I don't have any good wine to treat you." The mage just smiled. He took the wine and drank half of the bottle in one gulp. Vesemir did not lie. This was indeed not a good wine, but the mage didn't care about it at all. Geralt walked out of the kitchen, wearing thick cotton gloves, holding a pot of soup in his hands, and the aroma came from it. At this moment, he looked more like a cook than a witcher. He put the pot on the long table in the hall with a grin, took off his cotton gloves, and said to Vesemir, "You really should pay attention to the heat, old man. The handle of the pot is burned." Anderson passed by him silently, holding dishes and other things in his arms. Vesemir replied, "If you still want to eat, shut up, Geralt. Don't think I don't know that you thought my soup was too salty last time. Try it again this time." Chapter 142 Banquet. The banquet, which consisted of only a pot of soup and dry bread, lasted until the afternoon. Although the food was not rich and the drinks were not top-notch, everyone present was enjoying themselves, especially Vesemir. Geralt felt that he had not been so happy in many years. His beard trembled and he kept telling stories about his adventures in his youth. Geralt was basically eating Hess all the time. Vesemir's soup was very good. This time he deliberately put less salt, and the large pieces of mutton in it floated up and down. With the spices, he ate 4 pieces of bread in one breath before stopping. Anderson was not much behind. He was growing up and had also gone through the trial of grass. His appetite was much larger than that of ordinary people. The pot of mutton soup was basically solved by the two of them. The wizard and Vesemir basically didn't eat much. They kept drinking. The old man's face was red. He suddenly raised the bottle in his hand, stood on the chair, and sang an ancient ballad loudly. Shenyan listened carefully. The lyrics were about a young man from the Skellige Islands who went out to sea to win the heart of a young woman there, vowing to kill a whale alone as a gift to her. However, in the process, the young man encountered all kinds of dangers, such as tsunamis, storms, water ghosts, and ghosts under the water. He reached the end with courage and love, saving his life but not catching the whale. The ballad stopped here without explaining the ending. Vesemir sat down tremblingly. He drank too much. Even the mutated immune system of the demon hunters could not make him sober. The drunken old man looked at the rebuilt hall of Kaer Morhen, and tears suddenly welled up in his eyes. He began to mutter to himself, reciting one name after another. Whose name was it? No one asked. Anderson put down the food in his hand and took the old man back to the room to rest. The two people sitting in the hall could hear his voice getting farther and farther away, still reciting their names continuously. "The dead," Geralt suddenly said. "Do you still remember your prophecy?" "Yes." Geralt raised his head, holding half a piece of bread in his hand, and said in an Arya-like tone, "In the dark night, the white wolf will meet the young black wolf. They will pass through the storm and cross the ocean. They will rebuild their former glory and search the whole world for a swallow. The black wolf will be dying, even on the verge of death. Now, I have found the black wolf. He was indeed born in the dark night, but I don't understand one thing. Why? Will the prophecy really come true?" He stared at the wizard as he spoke. The 5 fingers of the wizard's right hand tapped the table. He pondered for a while. "It depends on how you look at this problem. Some people are in a state of panic after receiving the prophecy, fearing that their fate will be as tragic as the prophecy. Others don't take it to heart at all. They just live their lives as usual. The prophecy will indeed come true, but how it will come true is something you can't decide." "Do you want to hear my advice?" asked the wizard. Geralt nodded and forked another piece of mutton from the bowl and ate it. The wizard could see that he was nervous. "My advice is, don't take the prophecy too seriously, but of course, don't ignore it completely. Everything depends on human effort. Geralt, you may not believe it, but I actually never believe in fate, whether it is in the past or the future. Do you know what I believe? I believe that everything depends on human effort. Moreover, If there really is a so-called goddess of destiny, she must be an ugly, vicious old woman. The wizard's abrupt turn choked the Witcher. He finally swallowed the mouthful of mutton. He laughed and said, "I agree with you. If the goddess of destiny really exists, she must be a cousin." After a moment of silence, he mentioned another thing. "Do you know who Anderson's mother is?" "I don't know, but I would like to hear more about it. Remember the inn where I stayed in Rivia? She is the sister of the owner of that inn, a very good girl. Now she has become a well-known scholar." Geralt didn't know where to start, so while Anderson wasn't back, he simply told the whole story of Bowles Manor. When talking about the man who suddenly appeared and Vilja who was kidnapped and pregnant, he said, "I later found out that the man I killed in the manor was the bastard who kidnapped her. It was also from then on that I began to doubt everything." The wizard turned his head slightly and looked behind him. He said calmly, "Did you discuss with her before taking her child away?" But her brother agreed. "Her brother is not herself, Geralt." I know, but how do you want a young girl to live with a child?" Geralt's lips turned pale. Shenyan said lightly, "You are not her, Geralt. No one has the right to make decisions for another person, even if it is for her good. Besides, you are actually selfish, right?" The wizard's words made the demon hunter lower his head. He was silent for a while before saying, "Yes. Recasting the glory of the past seems to be my problem, Geralt. I really shouldn't have made that prophecy on a whim." Shenyan shook his head. Geralt pursed his lips tightly and said nothing. The soup in the pot was almost gone. The large pieces of mutton were eaten up, leaving only a few bones floating alone in it. The wizard continued, "Why do you suddenly bring up this matter?" "I want to find Vilja." "Then what? You took her newborn baby away without saying a word. Now you want to take him back again after 16 years? I know it's very—" Anderson suddenly walked out and interrupted what Geralt wanted to say. The black-haired boy said calmly, "I have no objection, Mr. He." Anderson the Witcher looked at his face, feeling a little guilty. Anderson just smiled comfortingly. "I don't blame you, Geralt. Maybe my mother and I didn't want to leave each other, but the fact is that she couldn't survive with me at that time, and she had to endure the cold eyes of others." The wizard sighed. This was the second time he did this today. He said, "Well, since you two have the same idea, finish your meal quickly and put on some decent clothes. Let's go find your mother." This is today's update. It will be on the shelves tomorrow. It's hard to describe how I feel. The editor said that there should be a sense of ceremony, and suggested that I write a thank you note for the book. But this is my first time writing a book, and I don't know how to write this thing. How should I put it? I have been writing the book for more than a month, and I don't know how my performance is. I just keep writing. I dare not say anything else, but there is definitely no problem with updating. At least some time ago, I updated 10,000 words every other day, even during the Chinese New Year. But I didn't expect to be scolded today because of the word count. Haha. He said that I haven't signed a contract for 300,000 words, and the comments area is still full of good reviews. It must be a garbage, and I hired someone to vote. He used a small account. I wanted to scold him, but after thinking about it, I just banned him and deleted the post. There is no place to talk about these things, so I can only write it here. I know the level of my own writing. It is my luck to be recognized by everyone. I won't say much. 10 chapters will be on the shelves tomorrow. I hope everyone will support me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143 Meeting. Vilja was a little uneasy all day today. 16 years had passed, and her red hair was no longer bright. She hadn't felt this way for a long time. Sitting in her office, she stroked the scar on her face that had become less obvious with the passage of time, and suddenly lowered her head. On her desk, there was a small sketch, which she had drawn after learning to paint. The technique was rough and clumsy. The painting was of a baby with a blurred face. She had never seen his face. The daughter of the tavern owner in the remote country of Rivia had become a world-famous scholar. She could even have her own office at the University of Vizima. the capital of Temeria. This was incredible for her gender. It's not that no one had said some gossip about her gender, such as how a woman could sit in a university and give lectures to students. There were countless such things, and even more unpleasant ones abounded. However, everyone who had seen her ability shut up. Her admirers enjoyed fighting with those who were prejudiced against her. The verbal attacks between the two sides were also a sight to behold in the newspapers. Her brother Mallory changed his career and became a businessman. He had already married and was well off, but Vilja still had complaints about him sending her child away without saying a word. Although she could not say she hated him, she had less and less contact with her brother. After all, even if the child's biological father was a scumbag, she was not, and the child was innocent. Time can dilute everything. She did not agree with this statement. She wanted to see the demon hunter who took her child away again, and she also wanted to see her child. But she had never tried to find him. Vilja had found many books about demon hunters, and she read every one of them carefully. The death rate of the green grass trial and the danger of fighting monsters in them made her shudder. If calculated by time, her child should be exactly 16 years old this year. If he is still alive. This is why Vilja didn't want to look for him. She didn't want to find out that he had died after searching so hard. She was willing to deceive herself that he was still alive. Someone knocked on her door outside, and the sound woke her up from her memories. The concierge shouted in his usual loud voice, "Professor Vilja, someone wants to see you." "Who is it?" The concierge pushed open the door. He looked chubby and very likable. "I don't know, Professor, it's a young man." "Well, very handsome, Professor." "Really handsome?" "Oh, my Jimmy, don't mention whether he is handsome or not." Vilja laughed dumbly. In today's world, she knew that if she didn't get married at the age of 36, she would probably be considered unwanted. Therefore, her concierge paid special attention to this aspect of the problem. Jimmy didn't want his professor to be criticized in this regard. But his praise for a strange man still made her want to laugh out loud. "Please let him in," Vilja said after tidying up her hairstyle and making sure she didn't embarrass herself as a scholar. "Okay, Professor." Jimmy retracted his head and closed the door. After a while, 2 crisp and rhythmic knocks on the door sounded. "Come in." The door was pushed open, and Vilja had to admit that Jimmy was not lying. He was really handsome. The young man was tall and wore a black robe with gold thread embroidered on the edge. He looked low-key and yet not losing his status. This made Vilja alert. She had sent away many such people in the past. Most of them had something to ask of Vilja, wanting her to use her academic influence to profit for her family. She refused them all. The man came and sat down opposite her with a polite smile. "Hello, Professor Vilja. My name is Shenyan." "Shenyan?" Vilja read his name again, and the pronunciation was very strange. She asked, "Are you from the East?" "More or less." Shenyan smiled. "What do you want to see me for?" "This is it." Shenyan gestured, and his calm black eyes made Vilja a little flustered for some reason. "I want to ask, do you want to see your child?" For a long time, the expression on Vilja's face and her heavy breathing made Shenyan feel that Vilja was about to ask the doorman to kick him out. But this no longer young woman held back. She closed her eyes, opened them again, and took a deep breath. "I don't know where you got the news from, but you'd better not use it to blackmail me to get something," she said coldly, "because I can guarantee that if you plan to make a fuss about this matter, I would rather die than let you get what you want. It was like this last time, and it is the same this time. I don't care who is standing behind you, even if it's the king. Do you understand? You are simply shameless." Shenyan was a little surprised, not only because of the courage and determination shown by Vilja, but also because of her words. "This means that someone has been threatening her." "Interesting. Who needs to gain some benefits by threatening a scholar?" He put the matter aside for now, without saying anything more, just snapped his fingers. A portal emitting blue light appeared, and 2 people walked out of it. The first one was wearing leather armor and had white hair. The second one looked much younger, with black hair. "What does this mean?" Vilja asked. Geralt spoke. "I am the Witcher who took your child away, Miss Vilja." "I'm sorry." Vilja was stunned. You rarely see this expression on a human face. Hope is intertwined with various emotions. No painter can fully grasp this expression. Her lips trembled, Her hands grasped the armrests of the chair, and her fingers turned white. She looked at Anderson, who had not spoken, and didn't know how to start. 2 lines of tears flowed down. She had already determined at the first sight of Anderson that this was her child. If you ask her why, Vilja couldn't explain it. Every mother seems to have this special ability. They can always recognize their children at a glance among thousands of similar backs, even if they have never met for many years. Shenyan turned his head and took Geralt back to the portal, leaving the space for the unfortunate but lucky mother and son. Geralt stood in the empty courtyard of Kaer Morhen and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" The wizard did not answer him. No one could tell right from wrong. He just patted the demon hunter on the shoulder and motioned him to follow him. Chapter 144 Fishing. You said we were going to relax. So this is what you meant by relaxation? Yeah. Isn't this called relaxation? The Witcher and the wizard stood by a river, holding fishing rods and fishing. Although Geralt was reluctant, his hands were not slow at all. He hung the bait, made a nest, and cast the line with great skill. He definitely looked like a veteran. The wizard glanced at him. Do you fish often? Not often, but there was a time when I had to do it. At that time, I went to Skellige. Their island was full of mountains, and I was very poor at that time and couldn't buy food. The deer on the mountain are much smarter than the deer in the woods. I couldn't catch them, so I had to be a fisherman for a while. And by the way, I killed a lot of water ghosts. Damn, is this unacceptable? It's not my fault that there are so many water ghosts in Skellige. Do I have to kill them? Besides, killing water ghosts is to get rid of harm to the people. Shenyan didn't say anything. He stared at his fishing rod intently, looked at the river, and gently lifted his hand up. A fish that was completely black except for its head, which was shining with crystal light, flew up and landed safely in the wooden barrel he had prepared. Geralt blinked. He was sure that he was not mistaken. Then he threw down the fishing rod in his hand and ran over to observe the fish carefully for a while before saying, "What is this?" "Fish," the wizard answered nonchalantly. "What fish can look like this?" Geralt's voice even sounded close to a roar. "Shh, you scared my fish away." Instead of answering, Shenyan began to blame him. After fully appreciating the expression on Geralt's face, who was scratching his head because he was confused about the situation, Shenyan finally laughed happily. "Okay, I'll tell you the truth." Facing Geralt's expectant eyes, he said seriously, "It's really a fish. It's just a little special. In fact, this river is also special now." His panting style of speaking made Geralt almost unable to resist throwing the fishing rod at him. But fortunately he explained it later. "What do you mean by something special? What do you mean by this river is also special now? For Melitli's sake, can't you just make it clear at once?" "Damn it, why don't you go and see it with your own eyes?" Geralt looked at him indignantly. If he could see it with his own eyes, it would be no big deal. He moved closer to the river and looked down. In his impression, the river near Kaer Morhen was neither clear nor turbid. At least he could see the rocks and crabs at the bottom of the river through the water. But now he looked there, it suddenly became pitch black, as if it was a bottomless cliff. Geralt felt a panic for no reason. He immediately closed his eyes and retreated to the shore, taking deep breaths. "How does it feel?" "Not very good, to be honest." "What the hell is this thing?" he said with a heavy breath. "It seems you have a fear of the deep sea. It's hard to explain this to you. This is really just a place to fish. Come here and I'll explain it to you." The Witcher approached the wizard. While fishing, the wizard patiently said, "Look, Geralt, worlds sometimes overlap. You know this, right?" Geralt knew what he was referring to. It was the confluence of the spheres, a cataclysm that occurred 1,500 years ago and changed the world forever. Few people know the truth about this matter, and Geralt is one of them. No one knows the cause of it, but the result is undoubtedly catastrophic. The worlds between different dimensions collided, and the worlds were directly connected and penetrated each other. It trapped many creatures from various different worlds in this world. For example, ghouls, bloodthorn corpses and high-level vampires are the remnants left by the confluence of the spheres. These creatures have their own unique ecology and are relics of past times. But that's not all. Even humans themselves are not native to this world. They came to this world because their own world was destroyed. I know. But what does this have to do with this river? I used a little trick to make the two worlds overlap briefly. Geralt's eyes widened, and he looked back at the fish. So this fish? Yes, it comes from another world. Don't worry, that place is safe. I don't think the scene I just saw can be called safe. As long as you don't jump in, you'll be fine. Now pick up your fishing rod and start fishing, Geralt. I used to do this often, and to be honest, catching a fish from this river will make you feel very accomplished. No, thank you. But I definitely don't want to spend my fishing rod and bait on this kind of river. Is this a river? It just looks like a river. That world is all ocean? There is no sunlight, so the fish are very delicious. Seriously, don't you want to try it? I guarantee that you will fall in love with them with just one bite. Geralt took another look at the fish swimming leisurely in the barrel, and he decided to let himself go. Not for anything else, just for its glowing head. Anderson sat opposite his mother whom he had never met. He looked at the woman. Her red hair seemed to have faded, but it was neat. Was she pretty? Anderson didn't know about this. He hadn't seen many women. He had spent his entire life on Kaer Morhen, but he felt from the bottom of his heart that his mother was the most beautiful woman in the world. Even if she was crying now, her tears streaked across the scar on her face. Something began to take root in Anderson's heart. He and Vilja didn't speak for a long time, just staring at each other. Vilja chose to break this tacit silence. So, have you been well these years? Are you tired? Did they beat or scold you? No. Anderson paused for a full 30 seconds before he could naturally shout out those two words. No, mother, they have never been like that. They are very good to me. He seemed to have lost all his ability to speak, and every word seemed to be forced out of his throat. Vilja smiled, pretending to wipe away the tears from her eyes, but this action did not relieve her pain, but brought out more tears. Anderson suddenly reached out his hand, held his mother's cold right hand on the table, and smiled silently. Chapter 145 Attack. The conversation lasted for a long time, as if Vilja was trying to make up for herself. They talked from noon to evening, during which the concierge knocked on the door many times, saying that someone outside wanted to see her. Vilja refused every time. They did not come out of the office until the school was about to close. When Jimmy found that the man who came out was not the same man who went in, he widened his eyes in confusion. But when he saw Anderson and Vilja's similar but different faces, he forced himself to calm down. Although he did not talk about this with Vilja, he still decided that he had to keep his mouth shut. They strolled through the streets of Vizima in the evening. This was not a civilized and clean city, and it was far worse than Novigrad. Vizima was divided into three main areas. The poorest was the Temple District, where the St. Libuda Hospital and the Monastery of the Knights of the Flaming Rose were located. The Trade District was the home of the richest and most important residents, and the city government and the main market were located here. The oldest part of the city, Old Vizima, was recently converted into a minority residential area for non-human races. They passed by a fruit stand, which was the only way to her home. The vendor who was about to finish his work saw Vilja coming. His eyes lit up. He hurried over with a cloth bag in his hand. Miss Vilja, please accept this." "No, Anthony, we have talked about this many times. You don't have to keep sending me these apples. I know you're a small business." "Listen, take it back. I really don't need it." They talked for a long time about a bag of apples, and Vilja finally accepted it. Anthony seemed quite happy about this. He had been sending apples to Vilja for nearly 2 years and insisted on not asking for anything in return. It was just because Vilja helped his wife when she was in labor. "Goodbye, ma'am. May the goddess Melitli bless you with a long life." The man ran back to his stall happily, happier than if he had made a lot of money. Anderson followed Vilja silently. He looked like a shadow, or something else. He didn't speak, nor did he make any sound. His boots barely made any sound on the cobblestones. He just followed his strange mother silently, trying to understand everything about the place where she lived. Vilja took an apple out of her bag, wiped it with her sleeve, and handed it to him. "Eat one, Anderson. There shouldn't be apples in Kaer Morhen." "Well, okay, mother, but how do you know Kaer Morhen?" Vilja blinked at him. At this time, she looked quite like her younger self, and her vitality returned. I am a university professor and a scholar. Anderson, of course I know Kaer Morhen. Anderson took a bite and it was very sweet. He had never eaten this kind of fruit, but it tasted good. He couldn't tell whether it was because of the fruit itself or because it was handed to him by his mother. They walked for a while and turned to the door of a two-story villa. This was Vilja's home. It was given to her by a wealthy businessman because she cured a stubborn disease for the wealthy businessman for free. Do you live alone? Standing in front of the villa, Anderson suddenly asked. Yeah, what happened? Anderson was silent. He pulled Vilja over and dragged her behind him. Vilja, who didn't understand, widened her eyes. She saw two arrows fall where she was standing. The young boy let out a roar that sounded like a human but not a human. Vilja saw another arrow pierce his shoulder, but Anderson didn't seem to feel any pain at all. His cat eyes shone in the darkness, and he bared his teeth, like an angry wolf. He picked up a stone from the ground and kicked open the iron gate outside the villa. The force was so great that the iron railing on the door was tilted. Then he threw the stone out. A scream came from the roof. A man fell down and his head was smashed open. Anderson picked up the dagger on his body and protected Vilja firmly behind him. He heard the heavy footsteps of 3 people coming from behind, and the sound of swords colliding with scabbards. He could hear his heartbeat getting louder and louder, and his mother's uneasy screams. He glanced at his mother and found that she was biting her lips tightly, picking up the crossbow from the man's body and holding it in her hand. He smiled slightly, then turned around, and the short sword flashed like a silver lightning in the moonlight, bringing death. The man who rushed towards him was cut in the neck in an instant. Anderson saw the second man, who was tall and holding a mace in his hand. Anderson slightly turned his body to allow his right hand holding the sword to stretch longer, and squatted down suddenly. Ugh! The strong man screamed and fell to the ground holding his crotch. Anderson stepped over him and kicked his neck hard. With a click, his head tilted to a fatal angle. The last scene he saw before his death was the back of Anderson running towards his companion, facing the third man. Without saying a word, he just pierced his abdomen with a simple straight stab, then rotated his wrist and slashed down hard. Hot intestines and organs were exposed. Blood splattered, and a lot of it stained Anderson's face. He wiped the blood expressionlessly, turned his head and looked at the villa. The 2 men standing guard on the roof had already run away. They moved quickly, leaving only corpses on the ground and Anderson and Vilja standing in a pool of blood. A moment later, inside the villa, Vilja palely cut off the arrow with a dagger, and took out the part of the arrow shaft that was still in his shoulder. She touched the muscles near the wound with heartache and shuddered. But Anderson still didn't say a word, as if the person pierced his shoulder by the arrow was not him. Alcohol disinfection, white cloth bandage. Vilja did all this very skillfully. Anderson put on his blood-stained shirt and said, "It's not safe here, Mother. I hope you can go back with me." "I know, but I didn't expect they would actually dare to do this." Vilja's face was full of fear, and then turned into anger. She didn't know why Anderson was so good at swordsmanship, but she knew one thing: if Anderson wasn't so good, she would not only die today, but also her child whom she had just reunited with after 16 years. The woman with scars on her face looked like a she-wolf with bared fangs and claws under the candlelight. "I will make them pay the price. The rest are still being prepared and will come soon." Chapter 146 beginning. Vilja was sitting in the house, and Anderson was accompanying her. After the anger subsided, fear enveloped her again. The anger in people's hearts would make them ignore fear for a short time, but in the end, they still had to face reality. Shenyan and Geralt, who had rushed over, stood outside the house, and the demon hunter's expression was extremely serious. He looked like he was about to write the words "I want to kill" on his face. "To be honest, I don't understand. Who would go to the trouble to kill a scholar, a professor? What good can it do?" The wizard replied, "I don't know, and you don't know either, but we can know. Your style of speaking is really getting more and more confusing." "You're welcome." The wizard smiled, and he stretched out his right hand and snapped his fingers. As always, a miracle happened again, but this time it was some kind of evil miracle. The dead were resurrected. The man whose throat was cut stood up, with only the whites of his eyes left, and a faint blue ghost fire was coming out from the cut in his throat. The wizard calmly asked the corpse, "Who sent you?" Will Gilmore, he sent us. The corpse spoke with difficulty, its voice extremely hoarse. Geralt frowned and said, Will Gilmore, have you heard of this name? It happened many years ago. I didn't expect he was still alive. It sounds like there is a story between you. Geralt smiled gently. If he is involved, then this matter is no longer just Anderson's private matter. It has become my private matter. Are you willing to talk about it? If there's time, I will tell you this story. But not now. Geralt turned around. He pushed open the door and walked into the villa. Vilja did not cry, but held a crossbow tightly in her hand, looking thoughtful. Geralt glanced at Anderson, who was sitting next to her, and asked, Will Gilmore, have you heard of this man? Vilja raised her head suddenly, and the undisguised hatred in her eyes even scared the demon hunter. It's him? It's him. Yes. I should have thought of it a long time ago. This damn scum. I really hope that the gods in the sky will kill him with lightning. Let his soul wail forever in hell. Calm down, lady. Geralt made a gesture, signaling her to calm down. When Vilja sat down again, he continued to ask, Why did he want to kill you? He found me a year ago and wanted me to publish a book or write a report, tell people that anesthetic powder is not harmful at all, and it can even make people healthy. God damn it. Does he think I'm an idiot? Don't I know how many people have lost their families because of the stuff he sold? You refused, Geralt said. Of course I refused. So he started to use other methods. Powerful businessmen, some old but still authoritative scholars, and even many officials came to me. They hoped that I could endorse Will Gilmore. She was shaking with anger, and Geralt understood her feelings. It seems that he is now angry, Geralt commented succinctly. He put down the silver sword on his back and prepared to go out with the steel sword. Anderson stood up. Where are you going? To find Will Gilmore. But you don't know where he is. You're right, kid. I don't know, but someone knows. Geralt didn't realize that his style of speaking was gradually moving closer to that of a wizard. Anderson said, I want to go with you. No, kid, you have to stay and protect her. Do you understand? Geralt said sternly. Anderson had to sit down again. Of course, there was another reason he didn't say. That is, Will Gilmore is not an easy person to deal with. Among the bastards in this world, if they were to be ranked, Will Gilmore should be ranked in the top 3. Everything you can imagine. Note, everything. He has basically committed all the crimes, and this bastard seems to be incredibly lucky. He always survives. Even the last time the Witcher hunted him for 3 months, it was still the same. Geralt walked out of the villa, and the wizard was still standing there, but the bodies on the ground had disappeared, and only a few pools of ashes remained to prove that they once existed in the world. The wizard glanced at him. Are you going to kill someone? Geralt pursed his lips tightly. Although I don't want to admit it, but yes, Will Gilmore, he must die. Mind if I go with you, as long as you don't take away all the fun? Geralt smiled. Shenyan also laughed, and he threw 3 protective magic circles on the villa. A malicious perception. Anyone who comes with malicious intent will be immediately struck into charcoal by lightning from the sky. A spell counter, to prevent the wizard who may or may not come, and let their spells act directly on themselves. The last one is impregnable, which greatly improves the villa's defensibility in a short period of time. Of course, considering the magic power of the mage, this short period of time can be appropriately extended. They walked out of the trade area and came to the temple area. This Star Corner is no different from those in other cities, but it is a little more cruel. Every corner is inhabited by beggars, suspicious people, angry poor people and frustrated non-human races, and of course, those ladies standing on street corners and in front of some shops with ambiguous signs. Brutal violence occurs here every night, but it will never be more violent than tonight. Geralt specializes in alleys. He seems to be more familiar with this place than his own home. This trick has been tried and tested. As long as you go into the alley, you will definitely find what you want to know. I have reservations about this. Shenyan followed behind him. He seemed to be walking, but he was actually floating. His feet did not even touch the dirty ground. The wizard turned a blind eye to the stinking environment here. He even had the leisure to pay attention to some poor people who were wailing in the street corners because of the cold wind, and cast a few healing spells on them. Geralt walked in front. He knew nothing and explained to the wizard why he had such a great hatred for Will Gilmore. That was 7 years ago. I met him outside the city of Maribor. He led a group of people to rob a caravan. That poor man, may he rest in peace. I don't want to describe his death. Why? But I still remember his death clearly. And his wife. His wife was also hung on the tree, naked. His young daughter. Forgive me for not being able to continue. The wizard nodded gently. Antisocial element. Chapter 147 beginning. What? Sociopath is a term. Look, Geralt, people commit crimes just for money. A few are impulsive crimes, but most of them are for money, right? Yes. But sociopaths are different. They just want to see other people bleed and cry. The more miserable others are, the happier they are. They are born like this. Your description is very accurate. Will Gilmore is such a bastard. Let's get back to the topic. What happened next? I saved the caravan owner's daughter, but she was already dead. Those bastards gave her an overdose of anesthetic powder, and God, I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, she couldn't walk for the rest of her life. She was not even 5 years old. I sent her to the priests of the temple of the goddess Melitli, and she died 3 days later. I paid for her burial. It was also from then on, I swore that I would catch Will Gilmore. I would make this bastard go to hell to confess to others. And you didn't succeed. Yes, because he bribed the mayor of Maribor. That money-hungry bastard let him out of the city. I looked for him in Maribor for 3 months but couldn't find him. But today, he turned around, his cat's eyes gleaming in the darkness, and his pale face flushed for the first time. Excitement, anger, and the desire for revenge intertwined on his face. I began to believe in fate. If he really has to die, he must die in my hands, and it must be today. Has anyone ever told you that you are very chivalrous? Now is not the time to make fun of me. No, I'm serious. Geralt, few people can experience so many dark sides of human nature like you and still be willing to fight for the few good sides. In this regard, you are better than me. Therefore, you'd better get out of the way. The wizard's gentle reminder made Geralt's hair stand on end. He immediately turned around to avoid it. A black lightning flashed and hit the place where he just stood. The mage looked expressionlessly at the darkness, where stood a black-robed mage. His old and skinny fingers extended from the sleeves of his black robe, with disgusting wrinkles. Mage? Geralt asked. Yes, it seems that your old friend has some new friends. However, he may not know that you also have a new friend. The mage stretched out his hand and pointed far away, and a ray of light immediately lit up in the originally dark sky, even illuminating half of the sky. Countless people looked up at this miraculous scene, and many believers of the gods even knelt down on the spot and began to pray. The light became brighter and brighter, shining on the old black-robed mage. He felt deeply trembling, but could not move at all. Shenyan and Geralt walked past him. The demon hunter looked at his slowly melting face and commented, "Sometimes you really give me the chills. I think you enjoy it." Do I look like someone who would be happy about the tragic death of others? Exactly, Geralt. And the wizard looked back. The melted man did not scream. His flesh and blood gradually turned into a pool of black substance. He is not even a person anymore. Are you describing or metaphorically? The wizard answered irrelevantly. The new friends your old friend made may be a little strange. Geralt, be prepared. I don't think there is any scene that can scare me. You will see. Scenes related to them are usually not very good. They continued to walk through the alley. Geralt originally planned to find someone to ask, but now it seems unnecessary. The wizard has already known all the information from the melted guy's brain. He was leading Geralt to a certain direction quickly. The dark alleys in the temple district are interconnected, but most of them lead to a common place, the San Libuda Hospital, which is the only place of comfort for the local poor and victims. Geralt was unwilling to believe that such a hospital named after a saint and with a very good reputation for many years would become Will Gilmore's lair. But when they arrived at the door of the hospital, he drew his sword. Countless demented poor people or beggars knelt around the San Libuda Hospital, guarding the hospital layer by layer. Under the night, there was no light in the windows of this hospital. The doctors and nurses who used to be busy were hung on the surrounding trees. Their silent bodies and speechless faces stared at Shenyan and Geralt. There were silent screams. Those ragged people staggered to their feet and stretched out their skinny arms to walk towards them. They didn't even look like people, but something that seemed to be something else. For the first time in his life, Geralt felt a chill. He even wanted to run away. The wizard stood beside him, his tone as calm as always. "I told you, it won't be a good scene, Geralt." Geralt's teeth were chattering. He had never seen anything like this. No matter how powerful the monsters he had faced in the past were, they could not bewitch so many people's minds and turn them into such zombies. He said, "What is this?" For the first time, the wizard's face was serious. "This is them." "Have you ever thought, Geralt, when you stare into the abyss is also staring at you?" People have been living with sin and pain for years, and some creatures that feed on these will cast their concerned glances in the darkness. Some are so powerful that they will even extend their tentacles to touch these people who are suffering in sin. They will suffer, scream, and suffocate, but in the end, they will become nothingness. Nothingness? Yes, Geralt, nothingness. The wizard pointed to the man closest to them, and Geralt suddenly realized what he was referring to. The human part of the man had completely disappeared. He might still be wearing the clothes he wore when he was alive, but his face no longer had the expression he once had as a human. Instead, it was dull, a void and dead silence with nothing left. They were eaten up. "All that's left here are just shells," the wizard said with pity. He snapped his fingers, and a huge amount of magic power burst out from his body. The people who were swept by began to burn themselves. Their bodies, like the previous wizard, slowly turned into some kind of black substance. It was sticky and even bubbling. Geralt suddenly felt nauseous. Shenyan noticed that he was breathing more and more quickly, patted his shoulder, and injected a stream of magic power, which made him sober up. The wizard said, "Now, we have eaten the appetizers. It depends on what main course your old friend will serve." Chapter 148 Beginning. "Welcome, Geralt. Long time no see." Will Gilmore's voice rang out in the square inches front of the hospital. He slowly walked out of the darkness, his whole body covered in black mud, revealing only his face. "My God, you are so ugly beyond belief," Geralt said with disgust. He continued, "You were ugly enough before, and now you are even uglier than before." "Will, seriously, why don't you just commit suicide?" Will Gilmore was not angry at all. He even smiled. "You are still sharp-tongued, Geralt. I noticed that you have found some new friends. But so have I. Why don't I let them come out and meet you?" "No, I think we should forget it," the wizard took the initiative to say. He took the steel sword from the demon hunter's hand and gently wiped it with his fingers, and it began to change. The length and weight of the blade did not change, but the material inside had become the top-level demon-breaking material. There were 8 shining runes on the front and back of the sword. The wizard gently waved the blade, and as he danced, golden flames began to burn on it. He handed the sword back to Geralt and said, "Take this sword, otherwise, you can't beat him." "Should I thank you for not taking away all my fun?" "That's not necessary, Geralt. I know you want to kill him yourself, and I have to deal with some other things now." After that, he disappeared. He left the venue to Geralt, as if he was sure that he would win. Will Gilmore grinned, and his smile became more rampant. "It seems that your friends have great confidence in you." "Shut up," Geralt replied coldly, and he ran towards Will Gilmore. Shenyan appeared in the sky above Blackturn Island, some distance away from the city of Rivizima. He knew some legends about this island. This island rises from the lake of Vizima, full of infinite charm and vitality. It is said that very few chosen ones can see a goddess of the lake here. Legends about her are spread all over the world. But, he knows something else. The mage had a deep disgust on his face. They were one of the creatures from the other world. Because of the celestial sphere intersection that had occurred in this world, the barriers of the world were not so solid. This gave these things an opportunity to take advantage of. They would not let go of any world that could serve as food. They were greedy and insatiable, but they were not without weaknesses. He looked down and saw that part of the island had begun to be eroded by the black viscous substance. From the sky, it looked like some kind of ink painting. That was the proof that they had begun to enter this world. Will Gilmore, a born perverted lunatic, seemed to be the landing station they had chosen. They would use him to corrupt more people and eat up this world step by step. Cannibalization. He remembered this word, which was the most accurate to describe this process. The mage flashed and disappeared above. When he reappeared, he had already arrived on the island. The black viscous substance was the secretion of their bodies. If they could enter from here, it meant that there was a world rift here. His mental tentacles had already spread throughout Vizima when he realized that something was wrong. In his perception, the world rift existed in a small lake in the center of the island. He came to the lake, where the situation was very bad. One of them had almost completely drilled out of the crack. It was not big and looked like a juvenile, but it was still very disgusting. From the outside, it was just a black ball, and on its smooth surface there was a sticky black substance that kept secreting and flowing out. They paved a road bit by bit, and the ball walked on this road. Every time it rolled, countless small cracks appeared on the surface of its body, and densely packed eyes opened and closed in those small cracks, looking extremely creepy. The mage had long been accustomed to this. When he showed up, it froze at the first sight of the mage. Silent mental screams began to erupt, trying to invade the mage's mind, corrupt him and devour him. But the mental fluctuations were just a breeze blowing across the face of the mage. He was too lazy to even move, and just gave it a cold glance. The illusory yet real blue flame began to burn on the body of the black ball, and it did not stop until its body in the material world was completely destroyed. Then, he began to try to close the world rift. A green hand stretched out from the rift, slowly expanding it. A naked, green-skinned elf woman walked out. When she saw the wizard, her eyes lit up. "Oh, hello, human, are you the fairy of the lake?" The wizard was a little confused. He originally thought that the legendary fairy of the lake was just a local god of faith. He didn't expect that she could travel through multiple worlds. What she did just now was not something that a local god could do. She returned from the outside of the world. "Have we met somewhere before? I remember. Are you the disciple of the Ancient One?" The fairy of the lake used her fingers to roll up a strand of her hair, and she said with interest. The wizard's vigilance did not decrease because she mentioned the Ancient One, but became more serious. "Who are you?" The fairy of the lake smiled and turned around in the air. Her beautiful curves were visible. The voice was crisp and gentle. "The fairy in the lake, the real thing." "What, didn't you hear the legend of me when you were in your own world?" Shenyan narrowed his eyes. "The fairy in the lake in all worlds is you?" "Almost. When I'm bored, I will wander around every world and give those brave and upright humans some swords or something." "Don't you think this is interesting? You humans have as many virtues as you sins, and this fascinates me the most." The wizard temporarily gave up the idea of attacking her. He said, "Don't mention this for now. Can I close the world rift behind you? Otherwise, they will come again sooner or later." "Ah. About this, little wizard, you don't have to worry about it." The fairy in the lake suddenly burped without any image. She blinked. "I hope you can forget what I looked like just now." "Well, there is no way. I'm a little full." Chapter 149 Beginning. "You ate them?" "Yes. What's so hard to understand? You don't know my race, do you?" The fairy of the lake was a little surprised. She explained, "I am one of the creatures of the other world, different from most of my compatriots. I don't like to eat you, but I prefer to eat my own kind. Don't you know?" Looking at Shenyan's incomprehensible expression, she sighed in boredom. "I thought I was famous enough, but I didn't expect it." "Oh, forget it. Make way, little wizard. I have something to do." She stretched out her slender and muscular arms and pulled the wizard away. It was easy to touch his collar through the constant protective spell on his body, leaving a wet mark. The goddess stretched. Something soft kept shaking, and in the gap between her stretching, the black object on the island quickly disappeared. She said sleepily, "When you are full, you will want to sleep." "Well, why is it at night?" "Forget it." The fairy of the lake snapped her fingers. In the bottom of her lake began to glow. A thin mist came from nowhere, covering her naked body and acting as clothing, but it made her even more tempting. The squirrels, deer, and birds that had been hiding in the woods on the island also ran out. They protected the goddess and sent her to the bottom of the lake. At the last moment before she fell asleep, the goddess turned her head and grabbed the wizard's hand. Her hand was soft, with a kind of ambiguous warmth. "Hey, do you want to come together? This will be very interesting." Shenyan, who realized that he was not her opponent, licked his dry lips. He calmly and rationally refused. "No, ma'am, although you are beautiful, I have other things now, and I haven't agreed yet." He couldn't finish his words. The fairy in the lake giggled, pulled him into the quiet lake bottom, and gave him a deep kiss. Shenyan had a head full of question marks that he couldn't release. Geralt's chest was pierced many times, but he was still waving the holy sword with golden flames in his hand like nothing happened, and kept fighting with Will Gilmore. He didn't know what was wrong with him, but it seemed that as long as he held the sword, he could not be knocked down. Even though the dragon leather armor was riddled with holes, it was the same. The temperature of the flame on the blade illuminated the Witcher's white hair and face, giving him endless courage. He roared, and cut off Will Gilmore's head with another horizontal slash. His head wrapped in black matter fell to the ground, and he laughed strangely. Compared to human voices, his laughter at this time sounded more like some sharp noises. Will Gilmore, who was more like a monster than a human, said, "You can't defeat me, Geralt. There are 1,000 souls in my body suffering for me. How can you kill 1,000 people?" Geralt turned a deaf ear to it, and he just held his sword tightly. Will Gilmore's head flew up from thin air and returned to his neck. The monster said, "Look, old friend, being human is just a burden." It opened its hands and its chest, and countless wailing illusory faces flashed through the dark space. "Look, this is how wonderful it is after I gave up my human identity, isn't it? Just listening to their screams makes me climax." Will Gilmore laughed wildly, and its right hand turned into a long tentacle and hit Geralt. The Witcher dodged, but the tentacle hit the floor tiles, and the flying stones splashed on him, still causing him to feel a pain in the part that was hit. "You're already crazy." Geralt rushed forward again, and he regretted not bringing the potion with him. Even if the sign might not work on this monster, he still had to try. His risky move got him the punishment he deserved. Will Gilmore seized the opportunity and knocked him out with a horizontal slash, and the sword fell to the ground. Geralt's face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. Geralt, my friend, you said this to me when we met 7 years ago. At that time, I thought I was crazy, but now I realize that I just chose to live in a different way," Will Gilmore said with a smile, stepping over the sword that was still burning with golden flames, and walked towards Geralt slowly. "You are really too foolish and too upright. As a demon hunter, you do have rare virtues. You are even better than many knights, but that only makes you more delicious in my eyes." There was undisguised enthusiasm in its tone, and it was even trembling with excitement. The appetite and greed that were about to burst out made Geralt feel sick. "I can't wait, my friend. When I eat you? No, I will eat half of you first. I will savor every part of your body. I will make your bones into my collection, and you will always be with me. Of course, there is also your soul, which will live forever in my heart. I will torture you forever, make you scream and let you experience the true meaning of pain. It will be very pleasant." It stretched out its slippery and scarlet long tongue and licked the demon hunter's cheek. Just as it was about to take the next step, its movement froze. The black substance slowly disappeared, and it became him again. The smile on Will Gilmore's face froze, and he grabbed his face as if he didn't believe in evil, with such force that blood even flowed out. He began to scream, and his screams sounded no different from those of the 1,000 souls screaming inside him. "No, no, come back. How can you leave me? We are one. Come back, take me away." It looks like Geralt stood up with difficulty, and he grinned. "Your friends have given up on you." Will Gilmore didn't hear what he said at all. He just shouted and screamed madly, trying to get those things back into his body again, but they had disappeared, along with those 1,000 poor souls. Now the only one left here is Will Gilmore, and humans will die if they are killed. Geralt picked up the sword that fell on the ground expressionlessly, and the flames illuminated the dark square. Will Gilmore looked at his shadow illuminated by the fire with trembling hands. On the ground in front of him, a tall shadow raised the blade in his hand and said, "Go to hell, Will Gilmore." Chapter 150, The Lake Fairies Visit Again. "So, while I was fighting that bastard, you and the Lady of the Lake were sleeping? Hey, Don't say it so harshly. Okay, I admit it, it's true. But I didn't do it voluntarily, Geralt sneered. Ha, every man would say that. They dragged me in. I didn't want to go in. Now let's see what position you have to laugh at the place where I spent money. Shenyan scratched his face in frustration. He raised his collar high to cover the bruises on his neck. The Lady of the Lake's behavior reminded him of a saying, when you are full and warm, you will think about it. I won't type the last two words. In short, it doesn't feel good to be forced to do it once. Even if the other person is very beautiful and the experience is really great, it's hard to say whether he has the idea of doing it again, but even if he does, he will take the initiative this time. They sat in the hall of Kaer Morhen. Anderson and his mother were chatting on the city wall outside, where the sun was the best. Vesemir was busy in the kitchen. Yes, after going through so much, Vilja decided to give up her position temporarily. Don't get me wrong, she didn't want to give up her career for her children, but decided to come to Kaer Morhen to see for herself how her children were doing here. Then she had to write a book to change people's stereotypes about demon hunters. Who told Anderson to be a demon hunter? Geralt was covered in wounds, and he strongly requested the wizard not to cast any healing spells on him this time. In his words, this is proof that you have abandoned me. I want to leave them to grow back by themselves, so that every time you see my scars in the future, you will remember what you were doing that night. Speaking of which, where is your student? Geralt suddenly asked. She is doing exercises. There is a projection of me in the tower that can answer many of her questions. I feel that you are a bit irresponsible as a teacher. Come on, Geralt, are you a wizard? Don't judge the way I teach my students. Facing the wizard's sharp words, Geralt pointed to the bandages on his body without changing his expression. Shenyan lost his composure instantly. Damn it. Can you please stop talking about this, unless you stop calling me the Water Ghost Slayer? The wizard was silent for a while, and then he said, you better keep talking about it. This time it was Geralt's turn to lose his composure. Damn it. Would you rather expose each other's shortcomings with me than stop calling me that damn nickname? The two people shouting attracted Vesemir, but he didn't get angry at Shenyan at all. Instead, he walked out of the kitchen, pointed at Geralt and said, if you still want to eat tonight, be quiet. My old bones can't stand your loud voice. Vesemir's sudden disruption made Geralt quiet for a while. He mentioned at least 20 times this morning about the wizard abandoning him. Shenyan took this opportunity and originally planned to open a portal and go back to the wizard's tower to hide from him for a while, but he didn't expect that another uninvited guest suddenly appeared. In the water tank in the hall, the lake fairy that Shenyan was very familiar with appeared again. However, compared to the last time when she was naked, she was dressed much more decently this time. Not only was she wearing a white dress, but she also had a wreath of flowers on her head that exuded a strange fragrance. Hello, wizard. She walked out of the barrel with a smile, leaving a row of wet footprints on the ground. She walked gracefully and came to sit next to the wizard. Geralt looked at her, then at the wizard, and said, I thought the appearance of a goddess would be more grand. Shenyan had a blank expression on his face and did not speak. The fairy in the lake smiled and put her arm on him, saying casually, if you want, I can do that. Geralt of Rivia, hello, do you know me? Of course, I have been paying attention to you for a long time. Or rather, I have been paying attention to those virtuous people in the world. I wanted to give you a sword, but unfortunately someone got there first. As she spoke, she glanced at the wizard intentionally or unintentionally. Geralt answered righteously, I have 2 hands, goddess, so I can use 2 swords. The Lady of the Lake laughed. You are very humorous, Geralt. The wizard had to speak up. What do you want from me? Can't I come to you if there is nothing else? She deliberately made a resentful look, and Shenyan felt his temples throbbing. He hadn't felt this way for a long time, but he was really not good at dealing with people with this kind of personality. Just say it if you have something to say. Did you pick up a girl when you first came to this world? The Lady of the Lake suddenly stopped laughing. She stared at Shenyan closely and said, under her gaze, Shenyan nodded slowly. Yes. Very good. Can you give her to me? First of all, I want to know why you need her, and secondly, is she related to you? The fairy of the lake laughed again, and Geralt, who was watching intently, said, "You can wake her up and let her speak for herself." Shenyan opened his magic backpack, and the silver-haired girl who was sleeping in the pocket dimension was lifted up by his mental tentacles and brought out. Geralt raised his eyebrows, and gave the wizard a look of "I didn't expect you to play so well," which earned a helpless roll of the eyes from the latter. Putting the silver-haired girl on the table, he asked, "How to wake her up?" The fairy of the lake didn't say anything. She just stretched out her right hand and gently pushed the girl. A flash of silver light passed by, and she, who had been sleeping no matter what happened before, woke up all of a sudden. She stretched her body, and her long silver hair moved without wind, floating behind her head and braided into a high ponytail. The girl stretched out her white hand and shook hands with Shenyan. She smiled contentedly. "Thank you for your help these days, sir. I have to say that you are indeed a kind person." She saw the fairy in the lake next to her. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately rushed over, hugged her and said, "Auntie, long time no see." Her body was pulled off by the fairy in the lake expressionlessly and thrown aside. She said, "I'll give you a chance to start over, sister. Long time no see." The fairy in the lake changed her face so quickly that the two men next to her were caught off guard and full of sighs. She immediately put on a friendly smile, even with red eyes, hugged the girl in her arms and stroked her head, saying lovingly, "Finally you're back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back." If you don't look at the previous cause, she looks like a kind mother. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.